Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I hope you're ready for a banger of an episode. Before that, though, let's talk about the brand that makes this podcast possible. That's right, Black Rifle Coffee. What you need to do right now is go to their website and order some of their Fool's Gold, the Irish cream flavored coffee that I'm literally looking at a countdown clock right now. Now, by the time this comes out, it should be live. I don't know how much they're going to have, but if you can get some, you absolutely should. If that doesn't work, my recommendation would be join their coffee club. And there's a couple. There is the traditional or regular, I guess could be used, coffee club. And then there's the ECS, which is a different blend every month, unique, handpicked. I think most of them are single origin, but they are fantastic. And if you are a coffee snob / nerd, which you know who I'm talking to when I say that, this is your place to go for sure. What else can you get on blackriflecoffee.com? Everything you possibly could need to make coffee. And of course, all of the merchandise that you would like to wear to support the brand. That's it. My guest for today is George Monsoor. George Monsoor is the father of Michael Monsoor, who on September 29th, 2006, jumped on a grenade, which, of course, took his own life, and he was later awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions that day on a rooftop in Ramadi, Iraq. I can't even fathom what it would be like to be a father to lose a child, let alone lose a child in war with those actions being taken. And George, along with Rose Rea, wrote a book called Defend Us in Battle about Michael, about his life, about who he was, and about his actions. He does a fantastic job speaking about Michael and the continuing challenges that he faces in his own life. I'm going to shut up and let George speak for himself. Episode number 275 with George Monsoor. Enjoy.
Okay, I got the red smoke. Gun run, north and south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke. Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now. Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. You're cleared hot. Copy, cleared hot.
I apologize up front for giving you an iced coffee. One of the first comments you made before we started was how cold it is here. And yeah, I guess I didn't realize that my love of iced coffee may not be shared from those who live in a beach area.
You're much tougher over here. We're kind of pansies at that beach.
Well, I tell you what, at the beach, an iced coffee is delightful. Do you enjoy them where you live, at least?
Yeah, I love it when it's like, 70, high 70s, low 80s.
Well, you live in California, correct?
Yeah.
So you love it every day of the week then?
Yeah, it's a great state. It's just bad management.
That is an extremely polite way to put that.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to be careful.
Don't. It's the internet. It's the internet. We can say we want. I actually really appreciated growing up the formative years of my life in California. I mean, have you ever spent much time in Santa Cruz or visited?
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful.
It's beautiful. The people there, I'll try to match your politeness and how I describe this, really like to explore the space of personal expression. They're really, really on the front leading edge of, hey, this is who I am, and this is how I live my life, and you're all going to enjoy this with me.
Exactly. You're going to love it whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I grew up in a town where my family had a long history. It was hard for me to get in trouble, even though I put forward my best efforts to do so. But when, the chief of police went to high school with your dad, or
Yeah,
it's okay.
It smoothed it out for you.
It smoothed it out. Like I said, my best efforts. One of the things I appreciated most about California, though, was when I actually left and traveled to some other areas, because I realized how much I really enjoyed living there. The weather,
Yeah.
the beach. Actually, after my previous occupation, less of a fan of the beach, if I'm being totally honest. My kids would ask to go, and my ex-wife would ask to go, and it's just, I would equate it to being an accountant and somebody saying, do you guys want to go do somebody's taxes on the weekend?
Yeah.
I enjoyed it less. But, I did some time in Virginia Beach. Mugginess, the 100-degree weather, 100% humidity, no, not for me at all. So
the weather's better here.
Well, the weather's different here. The summer months are absolutely beautiful here. And like we were talking about before, I struggle to get an actual accurate population for Kalispell in the winter months. I've heard high 20s to low 40s. And some people roll in the whole Flathead Valley, which is kind of like 4 cities. But in the summer months, like walking down Main Street like you were today, lighter traffic, especially in comparison to California. Yeah. Summer months, it's packed. Which, if you have a business or you like a faster pace of life, that's great for you. If you're used to the wintertime, it's an adjustment.
Yeah. Once I got into, I came into Billings and then just started coming through. But it is a beautiful state.
Never stop in Billings, though.
Yeah. Well,
do you know what they're known for? Methamphetamine.
Really?
I'm not sure, but I've heard people say that.
That explains a lot of the help at the restaurant.
Yeah. I've been told don't go east of Bozeman.
Yeah.
However, having said that, I'm not sure the reliability of those sources that I got.
Well, I almost moved 30 years ago. I actually almost moved to Missoula.
Really?
Yeah.
Why were you looking at Missoula?
We were looking at a casino. Me and a friend of mine, we were going to buy one. And I was down for about a month, and beautiful.
What month were you?
It was during the summer.
Yes.
Yeah, it was
the
nice.
key to Montana is visiting in the shoulder season or the winter to make sure that you're okay with that.
And we almost did the deal, and then he got real sick at the end, and we split up. And he told me that he had cancer and he was going to die. And I just couldn't believe him because he seemed so healthy. I thought he just wanted out of the deal. And like 20 years later, I found out he actually died of cancer. So it's
rough.
Yeah, I felt really bad about it. But anyway, I was looking forward to going to Missoula.
The casino business.
Yeah, I'm in the casino business now.
Really?
Yeah.
What specifically do you do in the casino business?
I was hired by Larry Flint about 20 years ago. I sold my businesses.
Is this the Larry Flint of Hustler?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I sold my businesses and I was kind of retired, and he's looking for someone who knew the gaming business. And I come from a family of bookies. Ever since my grandparents, they came over here, bookies. My father, bookie.
People are going to bet.
Yeah. And so he wanted to keep a clean casino. And someone recommended me as someone who knew the guys he didn't want in his casino.
Yeah.
So I just basically kept the bad guys from establishing their business in his casino.
What does that look like when you say a bad guys?
Well, there are guys that are good guys, like our family bookie business. No trouble. We pay our debts. No violence. We have a bad actor. We basically put a little pressure. Other than that, we're done with them. And we try to cut them off with the other books. And then there's guys that are trouble. They establish a place for doing business in the casino. They bring in a lot of juice men.
When you say in the casino, are you saying like they'll take over? I'm assuming they're not doing like a brick and mortar in this casino.
No,
they have a presence in the casino?
Yeah, what they'll do is they'll set up in the restaurant, and you'll start to realize I'm seeing this guy every Tuesday for payoffs. And the people he's bringing are not the guys you want in your casino because, like I said, you get a bookie in there, then you get the juice men in there, and then you get employees. They're starting to get indebted to these guys, and it just goes bad after that. There's certain favors they're doing for these guys, and it affects the games, it affects everything. So Larry always wanted a clean house, and I gave him a clean house. He had, we really took care of it. It was rough in the first couple of years, but after that, they just didn't come in anymore. But it was, I enjoyed that, and he's actually not a bad guy. I know he's got a reputation, but he gave me his word on me handling the surveillance department, and he's got 2 casinos, so I oversee both of them. And
still currently?
Yeah, I'm getting out of it. I'm just working part-time. My wife got sick, so I went to part-time, and so he was really good about it. He just died last year.
Yeah, I thought I had heard that. I was going to ask. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, yeah. So we used to have breakfast or lunch a couple times a month, just go over everything, and then obviously if you called me, I would be over there. But it's a funny guy.
It's wild to me that, at least I don't know really anything about the casino business.
Yeah.
I've been to Vegas a bunch. I will gamble occasionally, but it's just never been a huge interest to me. But I am aware that they have betting on sporting activities.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me that in an environment where you could just walk up and bet through the casino, that somebody would come in and try to set up a competing business under their own roof.
Well, there's no juice. If on a regular, there was no juice if you laid a bet with us.
What do you mean by juice?
Okay, so you go to the casino and they're going to charge you 10% vig, which is basically interest on the bet. So,
Okay.
So if you bet $100, you're going to get $90 back.
Okay.
So what they'll do is they'll balance the books so that they'll put themselves in the position where they really won't lose any money. They know they're going to make 10%. If they balance everything, because
I have been told they build casinos on the winners.
Yeah.
Wait, that's not correct. Yeah. It's like, hey guys, this is a multi-billion-dollar building.
Who paid for it?
Yeah, go ahead. You know what? You are the person that has the key to that roulette wheel. You go out there and help them put a third floor on this place.
Yeah, I don't recommend those games. We would go over these games and we would always look at a game and say, okay, are we giving too much? You make adjustment in these games. So, I think you can win in poker. My father was rated in top 10 nationally at one time. So he made a living at poker. And if you're good at sports in handicapping, I did it for 10 years. So, and I did well.
Yeah. So the juice, though. So the casino is upfront about the juice they're going to take.
Oh, yeah. You see it right on your tickets.
So what is the illicit bookie or the bookie that's trying to operate in the casino offer that you guys can't?
There is no, you bet 100, you get 100 back.
Oh, okay.
So they like that. And also, when we were in the business, if we thought we knew how this game was going to go, then we would take a different position. Let's say the spread is 5 points, or for the Super Bowl we just had, it was 1.5.
1.5 points?
Yeah.
Who was favored to win?
It was the Eagles were favored.
Okay.
Okay. So, and then the over-under was, I think it was 51. So let's say we thought that maybe the other team was going to win. So we would change the lines. Because we could change the lines and we covered everything, we could give better deals. So what would happen is they would get, let's say the guy wanted Kansas City and he'd get 1.5. Well, maybe we were going to give 3. So his action would go to us because he got 3 points. So we could draw them in, but there were times where being so smart would lose $100,000. So,
that stings a touch.
Yeah. And there's other times where we made an extra 100,000 because you draw them in and you were right. It was going to go the other way.
Well, in hindsight, the Kansas City bet would have been a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Actually, did they hit the over under too? I'm trying to think.
They were over.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. They're
all right.
over. Yeah. So, it's, you're always trying to figure out, gamblers, because some of them are pretty clever. A lot of them are just you just feel sorry for them. It's like, why are you there? When I'm looking at these players upstairs, so we have monitors on everything, and you see a guy. He came, let's say, on a Friday. He's up $1 million. It's late Saturday. Sunday morning, he's asking if he can get a free meal. They cannot leave, and it drives me crazy. It's like I'm actually rooting for them to take that money and go home.
What do you think it is that puts them in a place where they cannot push their chair back and leave? Because I'm assuming that they have some level of intelligence. Like if you're up $1 million, and is this on a card game you're talking? Or
it was on Pai Gao. It's a Chinese card game. Yeah.
So you're able to count, to play the game, right? You probably got yourself to the casino, and if you're able to count and you realize that you're up by 7 figures,
Yeah.
what is it that prevents them from pushing back? Or let's say you go down and you're at 750, and then you're at 500. Like, that's still a lot of money.
Yes. They don't have, they always, I don't know what it is. They're addicted, one thing. When you
Like truly addicted?
Yeah. I'll see the same faces all the time.
Is it an addiction to the game, like the actual whatever game they're playing, or is it an addiction to the unknown, that setting?
I think it's just the betting. Yeah. They'll bet on anything. When I was a kid, L.A. County, L.A., they were really watching bookmakers. So as a kid, I would be the one that would collect and pay off because my dad didn't want to get caught. So I would get to know these people. I've seen them lose restaurants, their laundry business, dry cleaning business.
Do you mean by that, like turning over the key in order to
where
satisfy their debt?
They went bankrupt,
Wow.
just sick. And I've even had as I got older, I started realizing they're not stupid people, but like you said, they like that action, and they just can't say no, and then they get in trouble. And then they'll try to double up. Or sometimes what they'll do is they'll bet one side with us and they'd bet the other side with another book. So this way they're going to win. The problem is the books are going to catch up with them. And then it can end really badly. We had two teachers that were doing that. And I don't know who did it, but they were all found dead in the garage because they had placed opposite bets all over town.
Yeah, at some point you're going to come across the wrong group or the wrong character, and the consequences on that, I think, are going to be pretty steep.
Yeah. So as a kid, you start to realize that these guys just can't say no. And I mean, I'm a little kid, and I'm looking at their kids, and I'm realizing I've been collecting from this guy for a month, and it's getting harder and harder for him to come up with the money.
Yeah.
And so it taught me, if I'm going to play these games, know your game and have enough discipline to control your losses. And that's what I did, and that's why I was good at it.
So you played poker?
No. I play poker, but poker was too much of a grind for me. I used to have fun in the Marine Corps playing poker, though, because you had...
Well, yeah, you're playing against idiots that don't know how to play.
It was beautiful.
I'm not saying Marines are idiots. I'm saying...
Oh, well, I didn't say that.
Yeah,
I mean,
people come, I've been around it as well. The card games are everywhere, and let's just say there's a difference in understanding of how card games work.
We're at this one game, payday. Everybody wants to get in the game. And I had this one guy from Chicago who's pretty sharp. And we were both in the game, and then you had the other guys. I remember I had this guy from Oklahoma, and every time he made a bad play, this guy named Darby would trash him. And I remember kicking Darby in the leg, like, look. I just looked at him, and then I said to Benny, Benny, that made sense. I could see where you were going on that.
It made sense for you.
All you needed was that 7 in the middle. It would have. You're so close.
Oh, man.
Me and Benny became good friends. I felt sorry for him. I remember I started teaching him the game, and he started holding his own pretty good. But yeah, I would be that guy that was, that's a good play. I'm not going to correct anybody.
No,
on
you're
a
trying to
bad
keep
play.
him in the game until you bleed him dry.
Well, the whole goal is to transfer his money into your pocket.
Of course.
And everybody knows how that works.
Yeah.
But I used to enjoy it, but it's too much, especially if you're playing for a living, because you can get yourself in a hole real quick. Anyway, I do mostly horses in sports. I did very good on horses. I bought some race horses, so you could kind of not cheat, but you could set up positions where you would race them in races where they're way over their head, and they'd lose by 20, 30 lengths. And then you would take them to a track that better suited them. And then what would happen is they would win, and they would win it 30, 40 to 1.
Yeah, because of their previous performance.
Exactly. And we would place our money. I had 2 attorneys for partners. And then, anyway, I would walk Vegas Strip and I'd place small bets all the way down because Vegas, at that time, they covered all the bets. So it didn't affect the odds.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so, the race, $80,000, $100,000.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's on the $2,000-$300,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 bet.
Wow.
Yeah. It was.
I feel like the best way to make your money gambling is on slots. I mean,
yeah, I recommend that.
I don't have the words for how shocked I am. And again, I am not an expert in gambling.
Yeah.
And I guess it's more, they don't even, like, they used to call him the one-armed bandit, but I don't think you even need to say that anymore because it's just this button. But I did a jiu-jitsu seminar with Henry Akins it was inside of a casino. It was in one of the large conference rooms where they laid out mats, but we had to walk through the floor to get to it, which was a little weird because some people chose to wear their jiu-jitsu gi, which was out of place, but nobody paid attention because
they were looking at the machines.
Well, there was a guy wearing basically a duck outfit with a water wing in a wheelchair. Like, it's like, oh, okay, this is completely normal. Is this New Year's Eve and Halloween combined? Nobody gives a shit. Just do what you want.
That's what I kind of love, looking down at the casino and seeing the people. I mean, they just crack me up.
But the tractor beam inability for them to back away from the slot, and there's always people at the slots, and they literally can't stop pushing the button fast enough.
It's a huge moneymaker. I like handicapping. I'll spend maybe. I used to keep records. I'd study about 6 hours the day before a race, and I would only play maybe 2 or 3 horses the whole day. That's it. But I mean, I'd get it down to feet per second when into the stretch. But you really have to work at something and have the discipline if you're going to be any good at it. But I remember giving my wife a lecture. We're in a casino, and she says, I think I'm going to play the slot machines. And I said, okay. You can play the slot machines, but I'm telling you, it's kind of for fools. Some people say they got an edge. I've never really seen it. Maybe it's true.
What edge could you? It's
just
computer
random.
chip.
Exactly,
Yeah.
It's random. Anyway, after her eyes rolled back after my comments, I handed her some money and. Off she went, and just before she was going to start to play, I walked over there to dig at her a little bit more. And so she smiled, and at that time it was a handle.
The old one-armed bandit.
She pulls back the handle, and she lost. And I says, there's just nothing here. I go, I can teach you to handicap, I can teach you sports, I can even teach you poker, even blackjack, which. And she smiled, and anyway, the third time, $1,000 and some odd bucks. And
you're screwed. She'll never listen to you again.
I know, and she never did.
That's the thing about statistics. They're all fine and well until you find yourself on either the good side of them or the bad side, and you get a very obscured view of what the statistics actually are.
I think there's something that burns in your brain, that payoff, and then you'll keep searching for it to try to get that feeling again.
Well, how many times have you watched somebody on a screen say they hit that 1,000?
Yeah.
They'll spend another $3,000 to try to repeat that.
To try to get it, yeah.
And that's how they build casinos, people.
Yeah. But if you can win if you really like. I remember one of the proudest days of going to Vegas. I brought my wife up with me, and we were going to have a weekend and see some shows and go to some nice restaurants. So we go to check in, and this is out of nowhere. I'm watching the games, waiting for them to get the room ready, and I'm just kind of looking at a blackjack game. This guy just comes up to me and he says, "Don't even think about it." And it was like
some random guy.
Yeah, but I realized he worked for the casino. And he goes, "You're barred, and you've been barred." And I thought to myself, I haven't been barred for like ever since me and a friend named Harry went to after we got back from overseas. We went to Vegas, and that's like a lifetime ago. It's in the 70s, and they still had that bar down where it caught my name. I was so proud. I looked at my wife. Said, barred here.
George, I have questions. The main one is, what the hell did you do to get barred?
Back then, you couldn't count cards. And like when guys are counting cards in our casino, I just let them go because they're not cheating.
Well, how can you tell that they're counting cards? Just off of the way they bet?
Well, some of them are, the way you bet.
There, 1, 2, 3.
The key is to be friendly but keep the number in your head plus this, plus minus this. But back then, when they were starting to hit, they were even if they weren't sure, they were telling you to get off the table.
Yeah,
we were up about $50,000. Now back then, you could buy a nice little house.
I was going to say that's a house
for $30,000. So we're at $50,000, and we're feeling no pain. And I think Harry got a little sloppy and drew attention. And but it was funny because they handled a little bit different. They asked us to stay a little longer. Because I didn't stay. I was barred. Harry stayed, and they gutted him. He got invited to the shows and got to see the showgirls backstage. And
it's a matter of time. They just want to keep you at that table till the odds catch up with you.
That's exactly it. And they also were more stringent. Once they knew you were a counter, then. They changed the shuffle. They would change the decks.
Yeah. To kind of reset your count.
Because they knew. I mean, they know how to do it. But I got barred, and Harry tapped out his parents' credit cards.
All right. Well, I'm glad they have a database from the 70s from two dudes who came in and were counting cards.
Yeah, but I really feel good. My wife just looking at me. You really were barred. And I go, yeah. See, hey, tell her.
Good God.
Anyway, they gave us a nice room, and he still said they didn't want me to play blackjack. Was not a problem. I'm a sports bettor, so that was good. Yeah,
it's like, no worries. I'm going to take your money elsewhere.
Yeah, and he also said I was welcome to slot machines.
Oh, gee, I wonder why.
And my wife went, "Ooh, good."
Yeah, slots. I could people watch for hours, if not days, the collection of And I say the following without any judgment. We were there New Year's Eve, and it was like the tail end of COVID, and there were people who had their mask pulled down just enough to get the cigarette into their mouth while double fisting Bud Lights and using the Bud Light can to hit the button. And I'm just sitting there like, God, what the fuck is going on?
In the room, I'd say those are God's people.
Oh, they're
just totally like they're just memorized on the
tractor beam.
Yeah,
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. When we were kids, there's 6 kids in the family, and my dad was always looking for angles. When we would go to Vegas, he taught us all kinds of things. Like, how maybe your dad taught you how to camping or surfing or whatever. We had different classes. One of the classes, when you go to Vegas, you go into the restrooms and you take the paper towels and you moisten them, and you walk through the slot area, and you put the towels up through the throat where the payoff is. That's back then when quarters
coins,
or silver dollars come through, and you just stuff them up there. Not a lot, just enough to slow the flow. And you go through as many as you can. You remember the Rose, and then we'll go to another casino, and then. If anybody stopped us, security guard thing, my sisters just break out in tears. And it's just, okay, just get out. And then we'd come back after we went out and did to another, and would rotate back. And they would go back and put our little hands up in those throats and pull the material out, and silver dollars fall out. Because nobody really counts them that much, and we literally.
Oh, so you're only getting you're just taking a little
bit off of all the machines, and we'd fill those buckets up.
I did not get that lesson from my dad.
See,
he would take me to Circus though, and give me like $20 a quarters, and say, "Go play,
just have fun, kid."
The video game, and I would do that, and then for whatever reason, I remember there they always had like a Lamborghini or something in
that
one of
you
those
could
circular,
win.
and I would just sit there and stare at that thing, and then go upstairs and I think like throw a quarter in the vibrating bed that was up there, and like
Life was sweet.
it was awesome. And he would come up at some, I don't know what the fuck he was doing, and it was great. And my mom never seemed to mind, and he had a good time, and I got to play the shit out of Tron.
Yeah, and it's actually fun if a guy goes and he knows exactly how. It's the same way when I'm in the stock market. Before I buy that stock, I'm prepared and I know exactly how much I'm going to lose. I don't know how much I'm going to make, but I already figure out where my stop's going to be, so I know exactly what my risk is.
Yep.
And that's the way you should do it in gambling. But they don't feel that way. They all feel they're going to make a lot of money. They're all going to buy the casino. And then once they lose too much, then they try catch up, and that's the kiss of death.
Just got to remember, they don't build them on the winners, which is tough to do when you're 10 free cocktails deep and you think you're on a heater.
Yeah, if you're a winner, they don't want you to be there. Yeah, they didn't build it for winners.
No.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where the stats generally are not in your favor anyway. So, what led you to the Marine Corps? Were you the first member of your family that served in the military?
No, my whole family. All my family came here about 100 years ago from Lebanon, and everyone served.
What branch? All the same branch, or did it spread out a little bit?
Mostly Marines,
Okay.
a couple of Army, and my dad was in the Navy. But
Any Air Force?
No Air Force.
Good man.
Because we're talking about the military, right?
For everybody watching and listening, that was George Monsoor that said that. I support that joke, though.
I mean, that was like going to their bases, like going to Disneyland with all the stuff they had.
You know how they
People
build the
couldn't-
bases, right? And I am not sure if what I'm about to say is true, but I have been told many times that what they do is they will build the runway last. So awesome BEQ, or the Bachelor's Enlisted Quarters, BOQ, Bachelor's Officers Quarters, Officers Club, and it's like, dear sir, madam, we are out of money and you can't land your airplanes here.
Yeah.
We need more. And if you think about it,
Yeah.
great strategy. Because they're going to have to give you more cash for the runway.
I'm not sure that's true or false, but it seems to make a lot of sense.
It checks out to me. Like somebody tells me that multiple times and you go to those bases, that checks out.
Yeah. So actually, my father, back then they called it battle fatigue, and he really suffered. I still remember when I was little, I couldn't understand it. He would just blow up, and
Just like an outburst of anger.
yeah, just things going on. And
Where did he serve?
he was in the Pacific. He's on a battleship, and he was in those big battles.
Yeah.
And I talked to a friend of his that served with him, and he shot those I don't know what pom-pom guns or something where they're in a chair and they swivel around.
I know what you're talking about
Yeah.
conceptually, but my knowledge of
Yeah.
battleships or even
Yeah, 'cause they're-
naval
yeah.
vessels is very limited.
His job was to shoot down the enemy aircraft, and if he missed one, I mean, he just couldn't take it. It just totally depressed, and it's like it's not that easy to shoot out. And there's lots of guys shooting at the same aircraft, but he always took it personal, and so he saw a lot of damage. And anyway, I remember when we were little kids visiting him in the hospital, VA. He'd be in and out all the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he couldn't hold down the job. That's why he went back to the family business and became a bookie and a gambler, because he just never could hold a job.
Did seeing that in your father make you hesitant at all about wanting to join the military yourself?
No, it's funny. It's like a lot of that didn't dawn on me. I just thought, okay, there's something wrong with my dad. Didn't quite get my head around it till then I joined. Then I realized, after seeing some of my friends, the damage that it does with a lot of guys.
What year did you join?
1969.
Okay.
Oh, 1968. Yeah, I got out in 72.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's when I don't think we had rocks that we would throw, because I saw what you guys have when Michael brought it home, and me and my sons, both of them were in the Marines too, and we saw the equipment you guys had, and I'm thinking, man,
It didn't suck.
We had like a poncho liner and a K-bar. That was our equipment.
We had that too. It was just
course
way
you
more
did.
expensive and much more high speed.
Yeah,
Ours was made out of unobtainium and some rare Hindu Kush silk. You know?
I remember his brothers are looking at that stuff like,
Yeah. Yeah, there are some benefits to being in the special operations community for sure.
yeah. And we gave him a hard time all the time about black sheep of the family. It was so embarrassing when we go to family.
I know. As well, we have a rich lineage of Marine Corps service and, Michael, Navy.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Don't even say SEAL, it's like Navy.
We would do that too.
Oh, man, interpersonal family rivalries. Some of my best friends are Marines, and it's funny. People think that, well, I guess there are people out there maybe from the Marine side, talking down to the Navy. And I mean, the Marine Corps is under the Department of the Navy, and my statement is always the same. It's the men's department. But I have nothing but respect for anybody who puts on a uniform of any kind.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Marines are some of the most fierce and ferocious people that I've ever seen on a battlefield. The things that I've seen under them are unbelievable.
They are put into situations that are, just
hard to describe.
Yeah, and you think to yourself, how can these guys stay at it like that? I mean, they know that they're in a real bad situation, and they'll hold the ground.
Yeah,
I've seen them just hold it.
Yeah,
and it's pretty amazing.
So you did 3 years. What was behind your decision to get out?
I just they back then they had the draft.
Yeah.
So you could go in for 2, but they gave if you wanted to be promised an MOS, then you go for 4. So 4 is what I went. And I wasn't a guy prone to go to war. I just didn't want to go into the Army because
you wanted to have some control over your destiny.
Yeah, exactly. So guy says you scored high in your tests. And before that, I was at UCLA, but I just got out of a boys' school. So going to UCLA and just coming out of high school.
Oh, you went from an all-boys high school to UCLA?
Yeah. And I didn't do well in school.
That's really weird that you would say that. I can't imagine what your distractions would have been. Especially coming from an all-boys school.
Yeah. It was, I had a nice Harley, and
of course you
everybody was welcome to ride on the back of that Harley. Yeah.
Clothing optional.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember getting my first semester, and I remember the counselor looks at me and he says, "Can you say Vietnam? Because that's where you're going to go with these kind of grades." And so I decided I'd beat them to the punch. I went Marines. They promised me I could work in a warehouse. That's what kind of hero I am, at a Santa Ana helicopter base.
Okay.
So they always tell you once you get in the Marine Corps, you better do good on your scores, because you're going to be a grunt.
Yeah.
And I didn't really want to be a grunt. My uncles were grunts in World War II and in Korea. And I didn't want to share any of those stories. I just thought to myself, no, that's going to be, I don't know if I could handle that.
The stories that I've heard from those generations and the type of warfare that they were engaging in, not always on a daily basis, but just the type of warfare that those theaters offered.
Yeah.
It makes anything that any modern era soldier, and I'm sorry to say this for the modern era soldiers, and I'm talking about myself when I say this too, it makes it pales in comparison. It is, and you can go back even farther, like World War I trench warfare.
Yeah,
excuse me.
That's another one.
Excuse me. I'm going to blow a whistle that both sides can hear, and then we're just going to come over the top. Is there another option?
It's like when I read about stuff like that, I just couldn't believe it. The Civil War, the same. They just stand there, and I thought to myself, how can these guys do that?
Can you imagine the emotional burden and the geometry that must go on in your brain?
Yeah.
When that's your job and you realize you're getting ready to do that for real. I personally cannot fathom it.
No, I couldn't either. And it's like, I still, when I look at some of those movies I just think, I don't know if I could have been that guy. I guess you just do it, but still, it's just a matter of time before that bullet finds you. And when I heard the stories of my uncles, they were in the Pacific in World War II, and then Korea, and even the conditions were just so bad. And I didn't want to relive those. I didn't want to come back and share those kind of stories. So I was thinking I'd talk about missing parts at a warehouse and going surfing But so I kept the scores up. I did good, and got through boot camp. And then I went to aviation school because my tests were really high. And the guy says, "Don't worry, you're still going to go to Santa Ana." Or I can't remember the other base, but both of them were in Orange County. And so I said, okay. He goes, just keep your scores up. So I kept them up. So went from fixed wing, jets, all that type of stuff. Scores good. Guy says, you did really good. So now you're going to go to helicopters. Don't worry. You go to Santa Ana helicopter base. Get to Santa Ana base, and they send you 50 cal machine gun school. Don't worry, you'll probably still stay here. That didn't work that way.
Optimal word is probably there.
So they basically send you where they're going to send you, and they keep you plugging away, get those high test scores. I don't know if it's the same anymore. I think they probably honor most of the stuff. I don't know.
That would be a total guess. I feel like they honor it sometimes.
Sometimes.
People who join the military just have to wrap their head around the concept of the needs of the military.
Yeah.
And they have to realize that those will always come before the needs or desires, I should say, of the individual.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just the game. Like if you go into the military, realize that's the game that you're playing, and don't be surprised by it.
Yeah.
And you'll probably enjoy the military experience a little bit more.
Yeah. I don't think I appreciated it as much as like the last year. I was good, and then afterwards, I missed the guys I was with, and just flying in the helicopter, just buzzing around. I really missed that, and it took a while because the friends you have in the service are a lot different than the ones you meet in civilian life. There's just a bond there, and
well, it's a community.
Yeah.
It's I've had this conversation recently. Actually, Mike Sorelli and I have talked about it because we just did a good amount of time together when we were doing the jump expedition, and we talk a lot about leadership and concepts of leadership, and we both are of the same opinion that leadership in the military is actually one of the easiest places to thrive as a leader.
Yeah,
and it's because of the community and the fact that the people are all bought in towards the mission statement. Or it
does make it easier. Yeah.
And they've gone through a level of, even in conventional military, you've gone through a few layers of selection to be there. So you've continued to put the foot forward in the direction, you're bought in. And so a leader can come into that and like, oh, I have a high performing team. Leadership is amazing. Well, go drop yourself in the middle of IBM cuticles, and let me know how that's going to go for you. When somebody really doesn't give a shit what the mission statement is, and they're there for their 9 to 5 because this is their first of 2 jobs, and it's like, oh yeah, cool, you want me to do this? Yeah, have fun with that.
Yeah, I had that problem in my departments, especially the younger people are. I remember I'm trying to tell this guy, look, your report is not sufficient. I mean, when, where, when type of thing. And I want to talk to you about this. And the guy says to me, he goes, well, I feel kind of uncomfortable. I go, you feel uncomfortable? I'm going to try to show you how to do a better job. And he goes, well, you're the director, and I'm not so sure that I want to really have a conversation with you.
Well, as the director, I'm not so sure I want you to work for me.
So I said, okay, fine. And so a couple of days working with HR, I brought him in. I said, Jim, this is Lisa. She's HR, and she's going to process you. And I just want to, before I leave, I want to just tell you that I'm feeling very comfortable. Have a good day.
I like your style, George. Yeah, it is challenging, and people should expect it to be challenging in an environment where not everybody's bought in. I'm telling you, looking back at what I used to do, not every single person was completely aligned. There's actually a lot of diversity of belief. But if you look at it in the bigger picture, Everybody's kind of pointed in the same direction.
Yeah, and it's
not difficult to step in as a leader and move the ball down the field when that's the case.
Yeah. No, you're right, because you get in the civilian world and they have their own problems. Some enjoy the job, some it's just a paycheck.
It's a me over we environment, whereas in the military, and it's not always perfect, they strive for a we over me.
Yeah.
Tough to replicate, though, like you said, in the civilian world.
Yeah.
Did you have any? So you had other sons other than Michael that served in the military as well?
Yeah, I had my oldest son. He was a Marine grunt.
Yep.
And it's crazy because he comes back and he says, none of them ever told me they were going to join.
Well, I was going to ask you, how was military service kind of framed in your family?
I rarely talked about it.
Yeah.
They heard more about the military from buddies that I would stop by and have a barbecue, and they're talking, and we embellish the hell out of everything. Of
course.
But
a barbecue, a few beers,
exactly.
Add 10% to your story. It's
we
perfect.
walked on water,
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was those stories, but they all joined. Never a word that they were going to join. I would find out later. My oldest son, he says, "Yeah, I joined the Marine Corps." And I go, "You joined the Marine Corps?" And I go, "Why?" And he goes, "Well, my buddy wanted to go in, and so I thought I would go in." And I go, "Well, what's your MOS?" He says, "Grunt." I says, "Grunt." And he says, "Yeah, my buddy scored really low in the test, and I thought, we didn't want to get separated, so I went ahead and said, I'll be a grunt too."
That's not the move, George.
No, it's not.
Bon voyage, friend. Do better on your test. I'll go in the Marines, but I'm going over here towards the shiny object.
Exactly. His buddy doesn't even make it through boot camp.
Oh, but yet here he is,
grunt.
continuing on.
Yeah, and there's something about my oldest son. He's blessed with luck. I don't care what happens, he will come out of it just fine. And then my youngest son, it's funny, he had a athletic scholarship to go to Annapolis, basketball or football, but he didn't want to do that. He wasn't military. So he got a scholarship, played football, and then Michael, it just really got to him, and he felt that he should join. So he went into OCS, and I remember some of my grandchildren going, "What's the difference with Joe going to OCS and Uncle Jim just going over to San Diego?" I said, "Well, OCS, they learn to eat with knives and forks, and they know what silverware and plates are."
Oh, indeed they do.
Because they're special. But I'm proud of all my sons, obviously.
Yeah.
And they chose to go in, and they all did a good job, and now they're in the civilian world, and they're doing fine.
Do you know where Michael first heard about the idea of being a SEAL? Where did that idea grab him?
I think he was hearing stories, maybe because he asked me about it once, because what did they do? And I remember he might have been hearing stories from another guy I served with about we sometimes would pick these guys up. We picked up recon and sometimes SEALs. You drop them off and
yeah,
that's it.
Helicopters and boats, super common insertion platform.
Yeah, and so I think it just stuck in his head. He thought, "How exciting is that?"
Do you remember what age that was where it stuck for him?
Probably somewhere around junior high.
Okay, so early teens, if not slightly earlier.
And at that age, he was just coming, he was getting stronger, and he was starting to, he started to really start challenging himself as he became stronger. And I think he thought to himself, that would be a challenge that he would want to do. And he didn't say a lot about it, but he mentioned it maybe once or twice. And then we went to graduation, his boot camp, and the guy, I don't know what they call them. Are they drill instructors in the Navy? I don't know. But he walks up to us.
If you hadn't asked me that, I would have been able to tell you.
I do that all the time.
It was, they're not drill instructors.
Yeah.
Because that is a uniquely Army Marine Corps thing.
Yeah.
what do they call them? I almost think it's like a division leader. We'll just say it's not drill instructor.
Recruit division commanders.
There you go. He's got Google over there. That son of a bitch. He likes to quietly come off the
And look
ropes.
at that smile. The smile says, "I'm so much better."
You know what he's actually thinking? He's like, I'm smarter than you. Here's the problem. We do jujitsu together. I'm going to beat his ass tomorrow. And as I'm choking him nearly unconscious, like, hey, Michael, do you remember when you were trying to show people that you're smarter than me? Which he is, by the way, but I just don't like it when he publicly displays it.
Michael, you're not really smiling right now, and I feel good about it.
But he is correct. Recruit division commander.
Yeah. So he comes up to me and he says, your son did great, and he's going to make I know he's going to make a good SEAL. And I was like, what? A SEAL? And that's when we realized that's what he wanted to do.
He didn't even bring it up to you until that point.
The only thing he said to us was, because he heard the stories about Marine boot camp, and then he said to us, it's embarrassing. He says they gave us like some kind of an electric gun.
Yeah,
and
for the qualifications.
He goes, it's just so embarrassing.
For us, it was, I think it was like an old school M16A1, but it was chambered in 22.
Yeah.
And we went to the range, which was an indoor range, and I think it was 25 yards, so that like you're shooting at micro targets. I don't think we shot pistol at all. Yeah, it was. But again, you look at what Navy boot camp is, it's an on-ramp to the naval service.
Right.
The special operations component of that is a fraction of a percent of people who go into the overall greater Navy. So I get it.
Yeah, it's not really necessary.
It's just that for most people, they're MOS or NEC. I think it's NEC in the Navy and MOS in the Marines, but it's just different.
Yeah. I mean, he heard stories about if you didn't qualify in the Marines, you were literally, a DI would be hosing you down in the mud.
Yeah, that's not happening in Navy boot camp.
No.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it happens anymore in the Marine Corps. It was hands-on when I was in. They had no.
Oh, I bet it was.
Yeah, they'd choke you down.
Full Metal Jacket, that movie did not create itself.
No.
And the fact that the drill instructor in that movie was supposed to be the technical advisor, and did you hear the story?
Live it. No, I didn't hear that.
So I forget his name, but he was a Marine, and he was supposed to be the technical advisor for Full Metal Jacket, and the actor, who I don't know who it was supposed to be, I guess was just really struggling with getting the mannerisms down.
Yeah.
And so the director was like, hey, you want to do this? And so he basically just threw his DI hat back on and got after it.
Yeah. I had no idea what it was going to be like. I just, I knew once you were a Marine and you were in certain situations, you could be in some tough situations.
Yeah.
But no one ever talked about boot camp or really much of anything, because they would just talk about a couple of stories and never into the details. And I remember you get up there, and this guy gets on the bus and starts screaming at you. And I'm thinking, what's his problem? And it just got worse.
Yeah, you guys, somebody must have had a bad day. Wake up on the wrong side of the bed, buddy.
And I was like, what's going on here? And I'm looking at, I remember you going to get your hair cut, and they would say, if you got a wart or you got something, put your finger on it so they don't cut it.
Shave it off.
Yeah. And you're standing like really just right next to each other. All you see is the back of this guy, and they're just marching you through. And I started laughing. I just started laughing, and because I'm looking around, all these guys got blood coming out of their heads. It's like you're pointing out, and you swear that guy just cut it on purpose.
They don't care. No. I mean, yeah, even in the Navy, they basically were using sheep shears.
Yeah,
and they were definitely being paid. Not by the hour. They were being paid by the person they could get through.
Exactly.
And it was just zip, zip, zip on to the next. Yeah, I don't know if I would have recommended pointing it, because they probably would have lopped your finger off. They didn't give a shit.
Yeah, they just started cracking me up. And plus, you see these guys with all this before, long hair, and they were tough guys. And now they're starting to have second thoughts like, what happened?
Too late.
Exactly. And then I also was surprised. I thought you would at least get, minimum wage. First time I was paid, they gave you instructions. You march in, you make a left turn, then a right turn, and then you center yourself in front of the desk of the captain, whatever he was, and you look straight ahead and sir, Private Monsoor reporting for pay, sir. And then he will put the book in front of you. You look down and say, sir, the pay is correct. And then you stand at attention and they give you your money.
Yeah.
And this is for just for supplies in boot camp, your soap and stuff like that. And I did everything perfect. I'm not a military guy, but I wanted to get some money. And I remember you shoved that book down in front of me, and I looked down, and I just went, $32? $32? And he says, where's your military bearing? I go, for $32.
Yeah.
And I spent some special time with the DIs.
What they don't explain is in your first paycheck in the military, they deduct the cost of your uniforms and all items that they issue you.
Yeah, and when I was in, a private made $98.
Every 2 weeks?
No.
Every week?
A month.
Shut up.
Yeah. When I was in aviation school in Tennessee, I gave a lot of blood because
make ends meet.
I think I got $20 or $25. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. When I was a sergeant, $500 plus flight pay. That's it. So you guys, this really stepped up a little bit, but
well, things also cost more.
That's true.
I tell people in the military is not a place you should go to look to enrich yourself from a monetary perspective, and it certainly holds true.
You are not going to make a lot of money,
Yeah.
but I really think a lot of Americans, young men, are missing out, even 2 years, just to spend some time. You're with all these different types of people. And there's a lot of things you learn just by being with these people. You realize your differences aren't really differences.
Yeah, you're defined by similarities as opposed to the small differences.
Yeah, and there's just a lot to gain from it. And I feel like I don't know how many people go in now, but not enough because
0.05% of the U.S. population is serving in the uniform.
These young kids have no clue about serving their country. And I have these young kids working for me, and it's like I got kids that think socialism is the answer.
That's because they've never experienced socialism.
Yeah, exactly. Haven't experienced anything. Go to college, and then they come out totally scrambled in a lot of cases. So I don't know. I just I'm glad that I served after I got out.
Yeah.
I appreciated it more, and I'm glad my son served. So
was Mike able to come home when he was at SEAL training? Because you guys were living just up the coast, right?
Yeah.
Were you able to see him a bit while he was going through that?
Yeah, he would come by if he could. Would see him on the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, it's fortunate. Even from Santa Cruz, I think I drove home to Santa Cruz one time. We had one of the holidays had come up. I had about 3 days, and other than that, it was just like nose to the grindstone.
Yeah,
and it was challenging for sure. Mike is a great example of just because it doesn't go your way one time doesn't mean you shouldn't reattempt it. And I mean that. What I mean by that is he wasn't successful in Buds his first time, and actually a lot of people don't even know you can go back more than once, but I think it speaks to the testament of who he was, that he actually dedicated himself to preparing even more and then going back. But how did that first failure impact him?
My kids were raised that if you join something, like, I want to play baseball, I want to play football, if they wanted to do that, they would not going to quit that season. If they signed up for it, they finished the job. Mm-hmm. And that's where they were raised. And this was the only thing that he rang the bell for. And I remember when he came to me, and I could just see it in his face. I lost, it's like I failed. And I just listened to him, really. And he just talked to me. But I knew that he was suffering because when he came the week before, there was just blood all over the floor. He didn't take care of his feet, get as far as the sand that got into his boots.
Yeah. So what happened?
And they just looked like hamburger.
Like the bottoms are just probably top
chewed out. Yeah, all the way around. But the bottoms are really bad. And
well, you got to add the moisture in there as well too. You're constantly wet, so there's no chance for your foot to really dry out and heal.
Exactly. And this is grinding, and there's just blood all over the floor. And I said, you know, you got what's Hell Week coming up.
Yeah.
And I go, I don't know, Mike. And he says, I'll get through this. But he didn't. He had to ring the bell, and I could just, God, he was just so sick about it. And the next morning he wakes up, hey, Dad, I'll make you some breakfast. And I'm thinking, what happened to him? You know, and he says, yeah, I'm going back. I'm going to beat this. I'm going to be what I started out to be. I'm a little bit smarter now. I will take care of my body, and I will be a SEAL.
And it sounds, I mean, that's a rapid turnaround for one, but it sounds like he really did take the 2 years with which he went to Italy, right?
Sicily.
Yeah.
And it was good because he got stronger, and he got his confidence back. There's a picture of this big rock out in the Mediterranean that him and his buddies, who were also training to be SEALs, they would jump off all the time.
Yeah.
So,
which has nothing to do with SEAL training, but I appreciate their headspace.
But it's like there's a thing on these guys.
Yeah. It's a different type of person.
Yeah. And Michael had it ever since he was young. He would do things where you're thinking, what's he thinking? You know, but he'd see a challenge, and then he would see if he could do it. Yeah. And no matter how many lumps he would take, he would do it until he got to where he wanted to go. In everything, riding a bike, you know, crashing, making these runs where you'd go up in the air, and half the time the thing he built would fall apart before he even got to the up in the air. And he would just do this stuff. Skiing, I don't know, speed.
He was driven.
He was driven to try things. So it worked out where he came back, and obviously we're very proud of him, but I wasn't keen on him being a SEAL at all.
So I was going to ask you, when did 9/11 occur in this process? Was it before he joined, or did it occur after he joined?
No, it was before, and
Okay.
that was another one that he had in his, really thought that these guys should pay.
He was not alone in that. I
Yeah.
mean, there were lines outside of recruiting depots, and I'm sure small cities as well, but there's a lot of photos from like major cities like New York, lines around the block.
Yeah, because, I mean, that was a clear attack on our country. And
It was also a clear indication that if you joined the military, it was going to probably no longer be conceptual and be very practical, especially if you pursued an occupation that had, direct combat and their role and responsibility. Yeah, that's got to be tough as a parent. So for myself, when I joined, it was still in the conceptual world. I don't remember exactly when the idea of becoming a SEAL hooked me, but it was about that same age as well, about middle school.
Yeah.
10 years old, 11 years old, maybe a little bit after, but it was this magnetizing force that I couldn't shake, and it really shaped a lot of the decisions that I made leading up to joining, but it was peacetime.
Yeah.
And, I joined in 96, finished BUDS in 97, did 2 pre-9/11 deployments before that switch, but it was certainly... It was a different world. It was a different math about why you wanted to join as well.
Yeah. For Mike, I think that was one of the motivation. But it was almost like when he would hear stories on how tough it was, he was in.
Yeah. For some people, that will draw you in more.
Yeah.
It becomes that, hey, you'll never be able to do this.
Yeah.
When I was young, growing up in Santa Cruz, this might shock you and people listening, military service was not the norm. Not that it was,
especially in Santa Cruz. You were a murderer.
Oh God! To some people, yes, and some people just went straight into the family cult or whatever it may be. But for me, it wouldn't be uncommon for people to say, "You'll never be able to do that."
Yeah.
But for who I am as a person, if you wanted to think of the most powerful way to motivate me, they just found it.
Exactly.
And it's things that people say, well, you'll never be able to do. And maybe that's not even intentional that they'll bring those things up. But what it does, instead of turning me away from those things, is it makes me curious.
Yeah, I used to work my kids that way. Like, I don't think you can do that. No, I don't think you should. I just don't think you can do that. And I would love it when they'd come back to me and basically just shove it at me and say, I did it, and I did it well. And it was like, I got you. But inside, I was thrilled.
Yeah, inside it's like, yeah, checkmate.
Yeah, exactly.
You're still playing checkers, and I'm playing nonlinear chess here. Yeah.
But I would just, there's just certain people that are motivated by you can't, and they are willing to sacrifice to get there.
For sure.
Yeah.
How was his second Bud's experience? I mean, obviously, he had some beta on what was expected of him. He knew what first phase was going to be like, but did he find the experience, I'm not going to say problemless, but was he able to navigate it pretty effectively given his previous experience?
Yeah, I know he definitely took care of his body. I mean, he came prepared. He had all kinds of stuff ready if that happened again. So he took care of his body, and he did have an idea what was going on. And he was always the kind of guy where if he liked you, he would just help you out, even if he didn't know you and he thought he could help you, he would. But as you make friends in there, he had a guy that just was a slow runner. And so when they were running, he would lay back with them and just keep talking to him, keep them going. Yeah. And then when they get to the end of the run, Mike would just finish with the top runners. And I remember Gabe would tell us these stories. He goes, he was just always helping guys out. And that's the way he was. So he handled it pretty well. He didn't seem to have any problems. It's like he just knew that he was going to do this. Because I remember saying, okay, so you're going to ship over, and what happens if you don't get this? Now you're at an MOS that you're not going to like. And he just looked at me like, what are you, nuts? I just told you I'm going to be a SEAL. And I could see it in his face like, you're kidding me, right? I'm going to be a SEAL. And yeah.
Did he want to stay on the West Coast?
As far as being a SEAL?
Yeah.
He liked the West Coast because he had everything here, but...
I mean, proximal to you guys. And so they give you a dream sheet. And I look back in a very comical manner that they call it that.
They have them in all branches. And I used to think, how do I get what I want without saying what I want?
Well, I said what I wanted on mine because I was from California. So, and for people who don't know, the difference now in the modern era on the odd and even teams is just where you get your mail. They get largely the same training.
Yeah.
Odd numbers West Coast down in San Diego, even numbers East Coast in Virginia Beach. I'm thinking to myself in second phase, like I've made it through pool comp. Like the odds are, I'm not great at math, but things are. What is that light at the end of the tunnel? Perhaps I might actually graduate this program. They slide this piece of paper in front of you. Put down your top 3 picks. I'm thinking, okay, West Coast guy, 248. Yep. I'm going to go check out something on the East Coast. What do I get? Team 5. I'm like, oh, you fuckers. So this dream sheet is exactly that. Me dreaming. And I'll be honest with you, I think they threw him away the day that we filled him out. But I was curious if he expressed a desire to go check out the other coast.
I think he would have went any place, that they said to go. He just liked being a SEAL.
Yeah.
I mean, he just... Once he got down in San Diego and he was finally a SEAL, he was living the life. I mean, he had his Corvette. He had this rocket ship motorcycle, which I finally stopped riding it about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I had a letter from my insurance company that explained if I get any more speeding tickets that they will no longer insure me.
It's best not to open those letters. I would continue to ride it, and if you get a letter from that company... Just store it in the garbage can.
Yeah, exactly.
I appreciate you're still out there hauling ass on a crotch rocket.
It's funny because I would just take it out every once in a while because I've always driven bikes, and it's not what I normally would. I liked Harleys. They just
I was going to say the crotch rocket is a far stretch from a Harley in almost every way.
Yeah, but I like the speed on the bike. And I remember I've been very lucky, and when I've been pulled over, just the expression on that highway patrol when I take off my helmet and he sees this old man.
Yeah, they're thinking they're going to pull over like a 20-year-old punk.
Yeah. It's like, whoa, what are you doing?
I would just say, sir, continue on and have a nice day. And maybe back it off just a touch.
I told him, I just, look, bike just got away on me. This isn't.
I can't control my right hand.
I mean, I have always kept it in my son's name. I says, it's my son's. And I just, started up to just, keep it running right. And I remember 135. And he gave me a ticket at 90. It was a blessing.
That's very gracious.
Yeah.
That's going to make a large difference in the amount you're going to write for a check for that particular citation, sir.
It was a good deal, but you really don't even know how fast. I mean, you go, but you don't know how fast if you don't look down until you feel the helmet tugging off your head.
My theory is, you're riding a motorcycle appropriately and fast enough when you don't feel comfortable looking down. You've found the sweet spot.
Yeah,
I'm not recommending that anybody ride their bike like that. And if you get a ticket riding like that, it was your idea, not mine.
Yeah. I used to get up around 3 a.m. and just take it down PCH.
What a great ride.
Just drive from Seal Beach down to Newport, coffee and some donuts, and then hit it again until the traffic started to get on the roads.
It's one thing I do miss about California. Up here, we have a very tight riding season. And by that, I mean, you could ride year round if you want to, and you could also slip on ice and go right into the Flathead Lake. Because I, yesterday, almost ate shit just walking down these stairs and hitting ice. I can't even imagine being on two wheels and having that type of power and response. No. So we have summer months. It's about 4 months.
Well, I haven't really driven in the snow. And coming here, it's like I had a nightmare going through Colorado. It was snowing and big signs, put your chains on.
Yeah.
I'm driving my wife's little Mazda 2-wheel drive.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really work. But I thought to myself, well, I can probably do it. So I went through it, and I really wasn't sure I was going to finish. I mean, you're seeing cars hit the side.
Oh, yeah.
You can't see because I didn't know how the salt covers up your windshield. I couldn't figure out. I hit the windshield wiper. I still can't see. Now I'm just close following these trucks, their lights, and looking for a place to pull over and scrub my windshield. Then I get up here and I'm driving and I see those signs, black ice. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Black ice.
Basically means it's invisible.
Oh, I see. I just thought, wow, they're really prejudiced up here. I don't know
It's
what's
a
going
super
on.
racist sign. I mean, in 2023, are we really going to Montana? Good job. We're going to need to find a different word. No, it essentially means it's invisible.
Yeah, and
you don't know it until you generally. What gets people? Two things: they will put their cruise control on, which is insane in an environment where ice exists.
Yeah.
Or they tap their brakes, and that'll break free the traction.
And that's after going through Colorado. I actually kind of like baptism by fire. So I think I came up here in pretty good shape. I could handle a lot of the slippage and stuff going on and slow down. And I'd see these cars I saw one, he lost it and went all the way across the highway onto my side and then just crashed into the bank. And it's like, it's no joke when you see that black ice. You're like, and you can feel it. And I started to feel it. I'm thinking, God, just get me out of this thing. Lots of prayers. You become very religious. And then once you're done, you say, just help me. I'll go to mass every Sunday, and then after.
Before going to mass, though, maybe hit a car dealership that's before mass, and you could get like a 4-wheel drive vehicle.
Well, I made a deal, and then after I got here safely, I said, I'll see you at Christmas. Thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's funny how we're believers when we're so frightened.
I bet you there's a lot of people at the gambling tables who are making deals as well, too.
Yeah. The biggest prayer is just help me get even. Please, God, help me get even.
God, what a bottomless pit that must be. So was Team 3 Mike's first team?
Yeah.
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 And the deployment that they went on to Ramadi, was that his first deployment?
That was his first. And I remember some of them had a choice to go there or to the Philippines.
Did they really? I don't know if they necessarily had a choice in that. I bet.
Well, or some of them got Philippines. I don't know.
Yeah, so the way, in my experience, it has worked, I actually was at SEAL Team 3 for my last operational deployment. And broadly, let's say that there's 6 platoons. They have to allocate some over there to, I think it's PACOM. So there was a platoon that went over there, but that decision is made generally above at like the SEAL level or XO. They're going to decide where it goes. The guys, I'm going to suspect, didn't want to go to the Philippines.
Yeah, I mentioned it to Mike. I go, Mike, I hear you can go to the Philippines. He looked at me like, are you kidding me? These are my guys, Dad.
Yeah.
We're not going to the Philippines.
What did he think about? I mean, so in BUD/S, as I'm sure you know, it's a screening process, really. They don't actually teach you that much about the job.
Yeah.
Did he enjoy it a lot more once he got to his team and he actually was being thrown into that operational element and learning the how-tos of the job?
Yeah, I think he enjoyed just about everything except what I don't. Would you dive? Do they call it skydiving?
Well, it depends. So there's static line jumping, where you jump out and it pulls your parachute immediately from a lower altitude, and then skydiving would be a higher altitude with the free fall.
I think the first start was the
static line. Nobody likes that, for clarity.
Yeah, he did not like it. And I remember because it bothered him when he was in Ramadi, he was telling me when he gets back, he is just going to do a lot of dives. So we felt comfortable because he likes to own everything.
Yeah.
But when he was talking, I was thinking the first time when I was up in Northern California, me and some buddies decided that we wanted to jump. And the difference is probably day and night. So we go up to this place, and they got some old, small planes like little Cessnas, Pipers, whatever they are, and they got the door off. And there's this a little platform. It's about maybe as high as maybe the bottom of a house, the roof. And so the guy said, "Yeah, go on up there and jump off, and then you got to like bend your knees and kind of roll."
The PLF, the parachute landing fall, which is called a controlled eating of shit.
Yeah. So anyway, me and my buddy, we go, okay, we do it a couple of times. The guy goes, "Yeah, I got to be a little bit more, roll a little bit more." We did a couple. He says, "Okay, guys are good to go." So that was it. So we got into the plane, and they told us, this is the chute, this is the safety chute, and going up, and that was it. I don't think they do it that way, but
I don't think they should.
So we're on this. We're up in the plane, we're crouched over, and Don's in front of me. And
did they have you hook a cable up to something?
No, they didn't do that.
Oh dear God!
Yeah, it would just count to 10.
Oh yeah, what could go wrong?
Yeah. So
yeah.
Well, anyway, the deal was when the guy says. He taps the front guy on the helmet like we're going to get ready, and then he's supposed to cut the engine, and then he locks the brake on the tire
so you could step on it.
Yeah, so you step on the tire, and then you hold yourself on the wing support, and then you push yourself off, and you count to 10 and pull. So anyway, we get there, and they hit Don's helmet, and then they hit Don's helmet, and I'm just like, "Don." Now I'm like shaking him. What's going on? He looks back, white as a ghost.
Call that condition black.
Says, petrified. I'm busting up now. He's looking at me. You think it's funny?
Yeah.
And so now the other guy stab him on the head, and I'm pushing him, And finally he gets out there, and he's holding on. And now the guy cuts the engine, and he's supposed to jump and count to 10 loud. And they says, just do it loud so you can hear yourself count, and then you pull the trigger. And so all we hear is 1, and then just screaming all the way.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and it was just cracked me up. And then you know how quiet it is once the chute's
under canopy,
open. Yeah, and it was cool. We're like talking, and then we're trying to steer onto the target. And those parachutes were probably nothing compared to what you guys use.
They might have been pretty similar, actually. It's not very high speed.
All right. Anyway, I hit the target, but Don, it just wasn't his day. He hit a barbed wire fence.
That's basically the worst environment possible. Yeah. Out of all the things you could hit under a skydiving parachute, a barbed wire fence could be It's at the top 3 of worst things that can happen.
Yeah, and it was I don't know. It was just he lived, but it was kind of a funny little story between us. And when we went back, naturally shared the story with the other Marines.
Oh, of course. How were your conversations with Mike leading up as they were going through their workup process, getting ready to deploy?
They started getting pretty serious.
Because kinetic operations in Iraq at that time specifically, 2003, 2004, even parts of 2005, it was not very kinetic. We were able to move into the country very quickly, but that curve of kinetic activity, it accelerated very rapidly. And by the time they went over to Ramadi, it was no joke. They knew what they were getting into.
Most dangerous place in the world.
It certainly was.
Yeah, but Michael didn't share Ramadi with us.
Oh, he just said Iraq broadly?
Yeah. And so he gave us the impression that he was going to be training troops. And so, I'm listening, thinking, okay. After he got there, we realized where he was at.
Yeah.
But he still never said until we finally said, look, Mike, we know where you're at, and we know what's going on in Ramadi, because he had saved Cowie.
Yeah.
And that story got out.
I was his second phase instructor with Cowie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ah. Anyway, Cowie found my wife and told her the story. So then all of a sudden he was...
I don't know if that's the move, Cowie. God damn it, man. Loose lips sink ships.
Yeah. Did you ever see the tattoo he put on himself?
Yes.
He swore to her that is exactly what he saw. He came over for, we had a Thanksgiving dinner, him and a lot of the other SEALs. And he took her to the side, and he says, he pulls up his shirt and says, "This is what I saw."
Yeah.
And it was like, just kind of blew my wife's mind, like, the whole angel thing.
Yeah.
But, he told her what was going on. And then,
because that's right. So he got medevaced out of the country, came back. Okay, so he had the opportunity to meet you guys, talk about that.
Yeah.
Because Mike's still overseas.
Yeah, he was still over there. And we went for Mark Lee's funeral.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's funny. You think because you have kids, you understand the pain, and you are just, you have no idea, because it just cuts you in half.
Yeah.
So,
Did that change your perspective at all? I mean, Mark was I believe he was in the sister platoon to Mike. Did that change your thoughts or level of worry for Mike, knowing that he was still over there?
No, I was always worried. Yeah. When I dropped him off in San Diego, I just had this bad feeling. I remember on the way back, I called my son. I says, I just have a bad feeling. I go, I just can't. I can't shake it.
Did you have that bad feeling before that day, or did it come
just
up
the
as you
day I dropped
him
off? Yeah, and I just could not shake it. And I remember telling Jim that, and he just, he'll be okay, Dad. These guys know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But I couldn't get rid of that feeling. And then when he called, when he was coming home in a week or so, and I was kind of laughing at myself, you old man, but you're acting like an old lady. He's fine.
Was he able to stay in communication with you guys at all while he was over?
Yeah, we'd get calls from him.
Okay.
Yeah, which was nice. Well, when I was overseas, it was 13 months, and you couldn't make any phone calls. You wrote you wrote letters.
Well, you served at a time where the phone hadn't been invented
exactly.
yet.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, those carrier.
I was going to carrier pigeons take a long time to get back with the notes tied on it.
And anyone that come down, I'd read those messages. It works.
Yeah. Oh wow. So, for people who don't know who Michael Monsoor was, I never crossed paths with your son. We served at the same time, and I got to Team 3. I had heard his name before. And I remember the first time I crossed the SEAL Team 3 quarterdeck, which is naval terminology essentially for the front door.
Right.
There is, I don't want to call it a shadow box because that's not really a description of what it is, but there's a really impressive display that has some of the gear Mike was wearing that day, and his Medal of Honor citation sits on the quarterdeck, and I can't think of a better place for that, actually, for people to see it front and center. And actually, I haven't been to the new SEAL compound because I knew they moved them down to Imperial Beach. I hope they replicated it there because I think it should always live there and be the first thing that people see. And I'm sure we'll get into it, but your son received the Medal of Honor for jumping on a grenade and saving the lives of other people on the roof of a building in Iraq. How long after from that call that you received from him saying he was getting ready to come home did that happen?
It was about a week. He called the day that it happened, but it was, I don't know what time it was, 3 in the morning, and we couldn't get to the phone in time. And he just said, Mom, Dad, and you're going to be sorry you missed me. I still remember that. It's like, and that was the day. But before that, I obviously was in sky high that he would be home in a week.
Yeah, you had something to look forward to.
Yeah, had everything packed up, he said, and then he volunteered to stay later because one of the guy's wives was going to have a baby, so he says, I'll stay. You ever notice good deeds, how they don't always work out? It just, I remember in Marines it was that way. So just the slightest change, sometimes it just, everything backfires.
I have absolutely no data to support it, but anecdotally, what I saw throughout my own career, and I've talked about this jokingly, how I've served with my best friends and my worst enemies.
Yeah.
And I worked with people who I probably wouldn't have felt that bad if something catastrophic had happened to them. And I feel bad saying that, but I'm being honest by saying that. We used to beat the shit out of each other in the SEAL teams because not everybody got along, and some people need to get their fucking ass kicked because they suck. Yeah. But also, I would see the most selfless people who would always step up when fill in the blank. Hey, I got it. Yeah. Hey, my wife potentially going into premature. I got it. They would always step up. The people who I felt were the most deserving, and it's a clunky way of describing it, but I felt that were the most deserving of having something bad happen to them, they never did. Yeah. It was always the people who were willing to step into their place, who seemed to be the least deserving of it, that absorbed that burden and then everything that came from it.
Yeah, and I worked the same way in the Marines. You'd see those. It's like I used to bother Mike where sometimes he would say, these guys are SEALs, and all they really want to do is tell everybody they're SEALs, but they won't really sacrifice for the team. Yeah. And it would bother him, and I would say, it's kind of that way every place. You got that 10% or whatever it is. They're there for the glory or whatever it is, but they're just not going to be, they won't have your back. They just won't.
Human beings, and again, I'm definitely talking about myself when I say this, but human beings are flawed.
And if really flawed.
And if you get a group together, like you said, you're going to have a bottom 10% and a top 10%, and almost everybody else just kind of floats in between. And I've always hoped, maybe I can trend. I've never been in the top 10% ever. It's maybe I could drift over there a little bit, and then I'll go back down to where I normally belong. But yeah, it's true. There is. There are people who want to become a SEAL because they want to tell people that they're SEALs. Yeah, because it does open doors.
It does. Yeah, Mike was always embarrassed if he went out and his friends, he would say, "We're going to go out. Never ever say I'm a SEAL." Yeah. He would never. He just says, "Otherwise, I'm never going to go out with you guys." Have his friends that around that he grew up with, and that was the deal because he did not want people knowing. Just wanted to do his thing.
It wasn't about the title. It was about the job.
Exactly. Yeah, and and then as you get real close to some of the guys you're with, and I think I know for me there were guys that I met that I think I loved them like brothers. It's just certain conditions where you realize this guy will put it out there for you, and you would do the same. And Michael definitely believed that.
There were, I think, the nature of the job, and I'm speaking specifically about my experience and in the SEAL community, the nature of the amount of trust that you put into the people that you are there with. You know, people throw the term family around a lot. And I don't know the answer to this because I've bounced it around in my head, not in comparison to my own family, but just the thoughts of what is family? Is it genetics and chromosomes that makes family, or is it what people would do for you and what you would do for others? Because they're really different things. And in every family, like in my own family, I go a couple generations back, and my father's father was a fucking asshole and disowned my father and the rest of our family. And I think if you go deep enough into anybody's family, you're going to find something.
I totally agree with you.
And so using that as an example in my own life, like if that's family, but look at these people I had no relation to who would have done the exact opposite and stepped in at any time, regardless of the question or ask that I have of them, and I would have done the same. Well, maybe that's family. And I don't know the answer, but it's the things that I saw men willing to do for each other, knowing full well what the consequences could be. I don't have the words to describe.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what Marine Corps, I came to that conclusion that family doesn't have to be blood.
Yeah.
It's like you say, there are people that will just sacrifice just because, you know, you're there and he's there and you both know that you're going to go all the way for each other, and you just get this bond.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got guys that I've known, it's been like over 50 years, and most of them have passed, but I think there's only maybe one guy still around, but we talk, and it's almost like we're back in our 20s, you know.
Yeah.
We're 18, 19 years old. It's just there because we remember what we did for each other, you know, and it's just something that's family.
Yeah, it exceeds my vocabulary and my ability to describe it.
Yeah, it actually is hard to describe.
Very.
It's this feeling, but a lot of guys know it.
Yeah.
You know.
What? How were you guys notified of Mike's death?
They went to the house. My wife, as soon as she saw these guys through the window, that was it.
Were you there at the time?
No, I was at work, and she just said she saw him, and she just knew. She was praying that he got hurt or something, you know, anything. Lost arms, legs, and anything other than dying. But they came and they told her, and then she called my daughter, and then my son. They all came over. Then my son called me, and he couldn't even get it out.
Yeah.
And then he says to call Joe, who was in college, and I couldn't get it out. I couldn't say that Michael had died. I just couldn't get it out. And I couldn't go right away. And I remember, because I told the guy he could come in later, and I'll just take over, help him out. And so I was stuck there for about an hour. I remember just phones are ringing, and I'm just in another world. It just hits you. And then you finally go home, and the kids are there, and remember lots of tears. Then I just, me and my wife, we walked into the other room, and she just put her arms around me. I could just feel the tears just soaking my shirt. And it was just devastating.
And I feel like in my own proximity to seeing the aftermath on the family, that it actually doesn't get easier as the days goes on, because there's so many decisions that you have to make in the coming days at a time where I can't even imagine the emotional burden, the funeral, what needs to be done, who's going to do what.
Yeah, it's it really gets complicated. All the things that they're waiting for you to answer. And then you have certain types of people that find you. And it's stuff you can't imagine why a stranger would put somebody down for dying in the military, making those little comments or leaving. I remember telling my wife, I'll answer all the messages on the machine. There's always, I mean, most people were just so good and so nice and understanding.
So you had people calling you that you
Well,
didn't
they would
even
leave
know?
these, they would find you and they would leave these messages like they were happy that you lost your son. It's hard to imagine that people go out of their way. I remember at Michael's funeral, they had those guys on motorcycles.
The Patriot Guard, I think they're
because you
called.
had these groups.
Yeah, they protest.
Yeah, that would try to upset a funeral. And it's like, what's wrong with these people? You know, it's not, these guys that serve, they don't pick these wars.
Yeah.
They go where they're told to go and they do the best they can. It's just amazing how cruel people can be. But the vast majority of people were just sweet. And, you know, it was good to see.
How did you guys navigate the time period from the notification to the funeral? Because again, the number of decisions that have to be made, I feel like it must have just been a blur.
Yeah, you know, compared to the Marines, the SEALs actually are pretty good about being there for you. I was stunned, actually. They really tried to help and help us get organized, and there's something to that SEAL family that I really appreciated, and they did help us on a lot of that. You know, I remember even a simple thing like a casket, right? And I'm thinking, okay, I'll just a metal casket. I didn't really care.
It's not exactly something you've probably put a lot of thought into.
But I could tell that that's not the decision they wanted. It was a wooden casket. I had no idea why they wanted a wooden, but they didn't say make it a wooden. They just kind of nudged me towards wooden.
Yeah.
And I realized on the funeral why it was wooden.
So they could put their tridents.
Yeah, I mean, it was covered. They even had them on the side. I mean, it was just covered, and it never dawned on me because I don't know the traditions of the SEALs.
Yeah.
But things like that, you know, they would try to, like, you know, maybe here's another thing you could think about, you know, and then we weren't sure that he could be buried where he asked to go. That was in his will.
In Rosecrans.
Yeah, and you know, finally there was a place, and that was done. And family was just kind of still not quite believing it. And then it took a while for Michael to even come back.
Yeah.
So then we went to visit him.
I mean, how was that? I hate to even ask that question, but.
Oh, that's, there he was. I mean, they gave us a room. Michael was there, and I went in first, and a lot of tears.
Yeah.
And then everyone else came in. And
Are you glad that you got the chance to see him one more time?
yeah, I am. To touch him. You know, he looked pretty good, and it was probably the best thing because he still didn't believe. He kept waiting for someone to say it was a mistake.
Or a nightmare?
Yeah. And so I think it was good that we all went in and saw him. And I think everybody just wanted to hold his hand. And it was probably a good thing.
When were you able to talk to somebody who was on the roof with him to hear about what he had done?
I don't think I ever did.
You've never had a conversation? Or even talking about before the funeral?
No, I think it was years because I think I don't have the friendliest face. I don't have the face that says, hey, come on down and talk to George.
I disagree. I would chat with you.
Good. We're doing it now.
Yeah.
But so they left me kind of alone, and I was angry.
Yeah.
So
Which I don't think is an uncommon emotion.
Yeah. So they were really sweet to my wife and to the kids, and but they left me alone. So a lot of the stuff I didn't know until I started thinking about a book. And the book was really written for my grandchildren because they never really knew. They just thought Michael was a hero, and I wanted them to see that he was just a guy and he had problems like everybody else. So I didn't really get into the story until years later. And, I would hear bits and pieces, but...
Yeah. When were you told that he was being put in for the Medal of Honor?
I heard talk about it, and this was another nudge. When people call me on my phone, if I don't know who they are, I never pick up.
I like your headspace.
Yeah.
You know what I've added to that? Sometimes, if I do know who they are, I don't pick up. Yeah. It's a bold game to play, but it's fun.
Anyway, I just wouldn't pick up. And so I remember, like I was saying, a nudge. So my daughter was notified that he was going to receive the Medal of Honor. And they wanted to give the message to me and to Sally. But I never picked up the phone. And so...
being a real hard ass to get information to, George.
I'm going, this guy. I go, what the hell is he selling?
Meanwhile, the caller ID clearly says the White House.
I don't know if I would have believed it.
Yeah,
of
course.
Anyway, my daughter goes, Dad, could you just could you just answer that? Because she knew they were going to call. And I'm going, what? Is it aluminum siding? What's going on? And so I pick it up, and then the guy tells me. So that's how they told us. They just called me up, says, I'm so-and-so with the White House, and your son is going to be a recipient of the Medal of Honor. And then the details came later.
Yeah. So you said that you were angry, which I can only... I'm a father of 3 children, of 2 boys and a girl. So I'm just about to say a little girl. She's 14 and sasses me at an uncontrollable level, and she's going on about 37 right now.
She's 14?
14, going on 37.
Yeah. No, I know that. I tease my daughter to this day what a genius she was in high school. I go, isn't it funny sometimes you call me about financing and things like that, insurance? I'm surprised you didn't already know these things.
I'm shocked at how much I've forgotten since I was that age, because I definitely knew everything. I think it's just a sign of brain trauma, because I can't remember all the shit that I was certain of back then.
Those high school years my kids were pretty good, usual stuff. But boy, those high school years were battle.
Let's just be honest. Looking back, we're lucky we survived. Right? We're monkeys with access to the internet.
Oh God, yeah.
It's a miracle we survived.
Yeah.
What would you say? I mean, obviously I'm asking you to speak for your wife a little bit. How was she processing and handling it? Was she angry too?
No, my wife, she can't stay angry. She lost her son, and it was difficult for her. I could hear her crying quite a bit. And, what can I do? I hold my wife.
Yeah.
I wipe the tears off her face and say we're going to get through this. And we did get through it. But it was, even to this day, I can start crying just thinking about it. She was the same way. It just, it's unbelievable. And I started thinking parents who lose their children, I don't care if it's in an accident, drugs, cancer, that pain just cuts right through you. It's a club you don't want to be in because your kids are supposed to outlive you. Everything is just wrong about it. And so you just ache. I just constantly ache about it when you start to think about it.
Does it come and go? Are there days that are better than others?
Yeah, there is. It's been a while, but things will trigger. I remember pulled over at a park. Thought I'd eat a quick lunch, so I'm sitting there. Had some junk food, and I'm watching a baseball game. Little kids, they're playing t-ball, and man, it brought back memories of Michael. I'm just sitting in the car crying about Michael, so it just hits you out of no place. And it's just always will. And in a way, I'm glad because I'd rather have those memories and some tears rather than not have the memories. So I'm good with it. It's just sometimes I could burst out at any time. People wonder, what's wrong with this guy, but it'll just hit me.
Yeah, I think the answer to that is nothing. I don't think I knew what love was until I held, my oldest son. He's 19 now.
Yeah.
And he's got a beard that makes him look like a logger. And almost every time I see him, I think of the first time in the hospital that I gave him with a bath with a sponge. And I can't fathom the burden that was placed on you and your family. Like what you're describing to me it's not a matter of what's wrong with that guy. I mean, obviously people make snap judgments because they have no understanding of anything.
Yeah.
But I don't see how it could possibly be any other way.
It's funny when you said you remember your son, when he was born. I think every father, I have all those memories holding. The first child was my girl, and I remember all of them. I mean, holding them. I remember my daughter. It's just sweet, and my wife was exhausted, and I'm trying to. It's like the first day. I'm trying to rock her to sleep. And I would just rock, and she'd fall asleep. As soon as I stopped, I'd see these big black eyes staring right at me, And then I'd start rocking her. It did all night till the sun came up. But, you still remember them like you remember your son. You just remember these, and it's like you're thinking, this is really love.
Yeah.
It's and it just grows as your family. It just grows, and then eventually you're going to see your children where they're independent and they're doing fine. And I will just look at mine at a barbecue or something, and I see now they have kids. And that is the payback, too. You spoil their kids and then throw them back to them.
My plan was to sabotage them so they always need me.
No, you don't want them to
call their employers and be like, just so you know, this is the real deal. So that way they always have to come back.
No, that's not the plan.
I'm not saying it's a good plan. I'm saying it's the plan.
But it's as you grow older, you realize you're tasting that love, and it grows. When I was young, I had a totally different view of looking at things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, first off, time is irrelevant when you're young.
Exactly. And I just took a lot of things for granted. I think my wife civilized me. And then
I don't believe you're the only man that has that.
Yeah, exactly. Wives will civilize you. And then we didn't have kids for 5 years. I didn't want any. And I think she had enough of that. And the next thing I know, they just started rolling in. It was like she was done being patient with me. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Because I said to her after the first one, I says, my daughter's so sweet. I think kids are really going to be fine. But then we had 3 boys, and
your life is over.
There's a huge difference.
Oh, man.
It's like I'd say to her, you think our kids have like mental problems? Or what is wrong with them? Daughter is sweet and clean and smart, and these guys are bailing out of trees. And
yeah, they're savages.
Savages.
Yeah. Again, lucky to survive the age of 2 and anything beyond that as well.
It's just they're so different. But I'm just so happy that my wife knew better, and we started having the children, and now I got grandchildren, and I can be different. My kids would say, "How come you treat our kids so much different than you treat us?" I go, "Well, I love them."
Only a father can say that and mean it. How did Mike's brother and sisters handle the news?
They took it very hard.
Angry, hurt, more along the lines of how your wife was feeling?
Yeah. I think I was the only real angry one. But yeah, they, especially my youngest son, and they're super close, and it's still hard for him now. Just thinking about all of them, it's tough on them.
How was the funeral?
The funeral was, it was again, we didn't know what was going on. It's how that military thing is. You're going to come over here and we're going to do this, and okay. So the funeral was fine. I think we started something when we just invited everybody after the mass, just if they want to come to the burial, they can all come. And I mean, I don't know, there was quite a few, probably hundreds of people there. And I think that was a good thing. And then they took us to an auditorium or something. And that was nice too. And that's where I met, Mike Sorelli and Doug and Benny and those guys. And I really didn't know anything about these guys other than I know they were there. And these guys are in crutches and they're pretty screwed up and they got tears in their eyes. And I said to myself, I'm ticked off, but why would I want to, hurt these guys? I can be ticked off, just me.
Yeah.
And I really told him, I told Doug, I says, I want you to live a good life. And they got a second chance here. And they shouldn't feel, I think a lot of them felt kind of guilty, irresponsible. And I told them that they shouldn't, you know, because what...
Easy to hear and I think really hard to do. It's probably a combination of survivor's guilt or decisions that you wish you could have made looking in the rearview mirror, which you can't. You do the best that you can.
Right. And I didn't want them to have that guilt. And my wife would actually communicate with Sorelli's mom. So she used to cry worrying about Mike Sorelli. Because, my wife loves everybody.
Yeah.
And so she just really worried about those guys. And then when I saw them, when it's down in San Diego, when they brought the ship in, they had a little a dinner and everything. And then on the ship, they just looked great. Mike, I was so happy he looked good. And then Doug looked good. And it's a good feeling to see that those guys were fine.
I don't know if I would use that word.
Well, not fine. No.
I think they're okay.
Yeah. You can't make that stuff go away. It's always going to be
You
there.
can't. I think the only question is, what can you do with it?
Yeah.
And it's a weight and a burden that unless you are placed in that situation, I don't think you can actually you can't describe it.
Yeah.
Did you know that they were going to pound the tridents into the coffin?
Not a clue.
It's one of the most powerful things I've ever seen or been a part of. And for people listening, I forget who goes up first. But the metal trident has got 3 pins, and at funerals you take them off and place it onto the coffin and hopefully strike it not too hard. People get a little bit out of control from time to time. Don't need to hit it that hard. But at the end of the day, I saw pictures of Mike's coffin, and it looked gold.
Yeah, it was completely covered. I wasn't looking at the coffin. I remember having my head down, just thinking about what's going on, and then I heard the pound, boom, and then a boom, and it was like I look up, and these guys are lining up.
It's a procession.
Yeah, and it just really shocked me, and it was actually beautiful. It's covered in gold, and there's people talk about tough seals and all that, but guys that were with him, there's tears.
Yeah.
When when a lot of the SEALs were in the White House, and the medal was given to us, and we're walking out of the yellow room, I'm looking at these SEALs, and tears are just running down their face. So, like you say, there's things that happen in our lives that they're just there, and you never really, you just can't throw that out. They'll always have that. And I know, like Doug and Mike, it'll be with them the rest of their lives.
It truly will be, for sure. After the funeral, did things get easier or did they get harder? Because it's, for a lot of people, it can provide closure to an event, but they're also not involved in the event to the degree that you and your wife and family were.
No, it was good afterwards as far as the people stopped. We had reporters coming to the house. We had people sitting on our front porch that wanted to write books. It was really kind of chaotic with
fucking vultures.
All these strangers, And eventually it just, our 15 minutes of fame was finally over. Which was Michael's fame, but they're just looking for stories. And I remember this guy from the Times said, if you don't talk to me, I'll just make a story up. And that's the attitude they had. Their job was to write stories. And some stories were just totally incorrect, but what are you going to do? It just, time passes and it just goes away after a while.
Did you consider an outside sprinkler system that you could turn on with a button? This is immediately where my head goes, George. Because if you didn't, that's a missed opportunity.
I know. I was a fool. I don't know why. You just said, I said that would have been a great idea.
I could consult on things like this. I don't know what it says about me that's right where my head goes, but
I just worked on an angry face and attitude. It seemed to drive them away.
Where do you think that the anger came from? Were you angry at the situation as a whole? Is it even possible for you to pinpoint where it was directed at?
I never thought about it until you just said that. I was just anger, and I didn't even question why. I think just the idea that I lost a son.
Yeah.
Just lost him. So it was hard to even think about it. Still is.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
How was it being at the White House? What was it? I'm trying to think. It would have been Bush that presented you the Medal of Honor? How was that? I've been on an official tour of the White House. This is as close as I've gotten. And it was at Christmas. There was an excellent gingerbread house.
I see. They treated us great. We had a police escort every place we went over there. We had the kids and the grandkids, and we're kind of jammed up in a hotel. Obviously, it's not our world.
Yeah.
But the president, he was a pretty nice guy. I remember when he came out, my grandkids ran up to him like they thought he was an uncle or something, and went and grabs him by hugs his leg, and he's kind of like, wow.
Secret Service might have something to say about that, but okay.
And the kids just got into that his office, and they're climbing on the desk. They're the button, his secretary keeps coming in. What's this? And his button. And
hot chocolate, please. Double.
And, he rolled with it. He says that, he's waiting for his daughters to get married and they'll have grandchildren. He was a pretty decent guy. I know that's a big job, and so I'm not always on board with some of his decisions, but he treated the family well, and he said to us, now this is where we should do our crying if there's any tears to be shed before we go out for the ceremony.
It's almost an impossible ask, but okay.
But we have cried so much, we're thinking, we're probably okay. And the irony was, he was crying in the ceremony. Tears running down his face.
Well, that's good. That's what you get for saying something like that to the family. Hey, we're gonna put some boundaries on our mourning.
Well, I don't think he meant it that way, but he just thought,
probably would be better back here as opposed to the cameras on.
And then he's there with tears on his face. But he was a nice guy, and at least to our family, and real friendly. His dad's friendly too, I guess.
Yeah.
They're a touchy-feely family, but they treated us really, really good, and it was kind of exhausting because they were there for 2 or 3 days. There's always a ceremony. See, this is the thing that we had no idea when they said they're going to be this, but there's always a tail to it. There's always something more to it, but it's just part of the deal, I think, where. It's kind of almost like we're going to do this for you and you're going to do this for us. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see there being an aspect of that for sure.
Yeah.
What did you guys do with the medal after they presented it to you?
I have it. I have it, and it's just hanging in my office, and that's really it. Most of the stuff I have is in my office. I don't really have anything outside of there. It's like I have other things, family stuff outside, but most of the other stuff is just in the office.
Is it in like a nice presentation, or do you go in with a hammer and a nail and just like one hanging it on the wall?
Well, actually,
I find it a pin and it's like, this will hold it up.
I put it in. I was that foolish, and in California we had an earthquake, and
It's a true story.
Falls down and the glass cracks. And I'm trying to get someone to repair it right now, but apparently the way they did it, it makes it complicated. So, it's another thing. I wanted to have the case fixed, but I guess it's kind of tricky. And people I've gone to said, you're probably better off just get a new case. So
I feel like there's answers to that.
Yeah, that's why I haven't changed the case. So I still have it. It's got a crack, and that's about it.
Where'd the idea come for the book?
For years, people kept saying, I want to write a book. I'm going to write a book. And
others kept saying that they were going to write a book.
Because I didn't want to write a book. I wanted to be done with it.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my grandkids, and they really didn't know a lot about him. And so he's a Navy SEAL who saved some lives. That's it. And I started thinking they should know that he struggled when he was young with asthma. And he was small, and he was weak. And every time he'd exert himself, he's just gasping for air. And it was hard on him. And he just kept refusing not to keep going. It was like hard to hold him back. If he thought he could do something, he would try to do it, even though he just really was too weak, or he couldn't do it very long. And he was bullied a lot because you're a magnet. When you're a little kid and you're weak, those kids, it's like radar. They find you.
It's like a moth to a flame.
Exactly. And so they would give him a hard time. I remember once they pushed him into a school closet. And, I thought that was pretty funny. Just stuff like that would go. And then I remember when I had racehorses, we went down to the track, and I think he was 9 or 10, still pretty small for his age. And he loved the races. He loved the racehorses. And I was going to maybe buy another horse. And so I says, I'm going to talk to the trainer. And if you want to go to the playground, you can go, or you can stay with me. And I could see him. And so he said, he's going to go play with the kids. And anyway, there were bullies because the kids were little. And so there was these probably junior high kids just pushing the kids around. And so I look over, and I could see they were pushing Michael. And I just said, Mike, come on. And so he comes, he's got tears in his eyes. And I says, they're bullies. You know what they're like. And I go, something like, sometimes there's just no justice. And he asked me about justice. And I say, it's like, when you get what's coming to you. And anyway, we're watching the race, but he used to love to watch the race, but he's just in another world because he's so upset. And he just kind of bugs out on me. And then I says, okay, the race is over. I'm going to talk to you. And then he just goes, okay. And then I go, so wait here. I was afraid he'd go down there again. So I'm talking to the trainer, and we're like on a kind of a balcony, so I can see the playground, and I see him jet over there. And the three guys are sitting on the swings, making sure that none of the little kids get on the swings. And he goes behind them, puts his arms around the back of their neck, and pushes them off. off the swings. It's like he was planning it when we were watching the race.
He was 100% planning.
Yeah, and so at that time they had these, like, they looked like rocket ships in the playground where you would go up the stairs and then there would be a slide.
Yeah.
And then you go up to the next level and there would be a slide. So what he did was he pushed them all down. And they came running after him. And he goes up into the rocket ship. And I'm thinking, what the hell is he doing? And so as they're trying to get him, he's kicking them as they're trying to get to the next level.
High ground is an amazing thing.
Exactly. And then he goes to the next level. He's got him up there. And then when he can't hold him off any longer, he hits the slide. And down he goes. I'm standing, maybe 30 yards, 40 yards away. And he comes out of that slide just running, a huge smile on his face, just running and running. And I got my hand out, and he just hits my hand, and he literally swings like that. Now the other guys are coming, and they get close enough, and then they see me, and I says, disappear. And they just go off, call it, with their typical calling names and stuff. Michael's still smiling. We go to the car to go home. And he's still smiling. And he looks up at me and he goes, Dad, I think that's justice. Still smile. He smiled all the way home. But that's when I realized he's finding a way to go after bullies. He doesn't have to be the strongest guy, but he will be the smartest guy. And he started going after these bullies, things like that. Or he would start debating them. They want to be wise guys. He's a very smart guy, and he would trash them verbally. And as he got stronger and more openly against bullies, he started having friends because they knew that he would have their back. And I wanted my grandchildren to know this is the kind of uncle you had. He believed in things. He would fight for things, and he wasn't afraid to lose. I mean, sometimes he'd come home pretty banged up, and I'd say, "What happened?" Nothing. Well, I know something happened, but he was that kind of guy, and I wanted them to see he would fail, just like he failed being a SEAL. They didn't even know he failed being a SEAL. The idea is for them to know you're going to live a life. It's not going to be easy. Life's tough. You're going to fail. You're going to win. It's what happens. When you fail, what do you do about it? Do you continue to fail, or do you regroup and do it again if that's truly what you want? And I had a daughter who was complaining. She's got into boot camp, and she read the book, and she says, "I'm just so glad I read the book, and I feel like such a baby."
I feel like she used a different word.
Yeah. So, then I'm thinking it would probably be good for a lot of young people, or even guys who are in the military. They can see how the SEALs and the sacrifice they make. So that was kind of why, I put it together. And people should just know that all of our lives at one point are tough. It's what you do, the way you handle those losses. And that's kind of why, you put it together and you hope people see the message.
That story you just told on the playground, I think you watched a paradigm shift in your son's head that stayed with him for the rest of his life.
Exactly.
Like a monumental shift in thought process that changed the trajectory of his life for the better.
Yeah. I thought to myself, he's drawing a line. He's not going to just take it. He is going to fight back, and he's going to take his chances. They could have got him. His plan may not have worked, but he was willing to risk it. And once he was successful, he was on board for taking care of Mikey. Yeah. And all the other ones. Those little kids were like screaming, "Yeah, yeah, go."
They had found their champion.
Exactly, So you're right. That's exactly what happened to him. And he just that's the way he believed, and he was that way the rest of his life.
Did you find it cathartic and maybe help you find some level of closure or put some of the burden down by writing the book?
It was kind of it was nice when I put some stories when he was young, and I think I'm responsible for his loving of speed, because I used to drive a little fast.
There's probably some accuracy to that statement.
Yeah, and so I can see where he kind of liked that excitement. But when I got into, so that was nice to kind of remember that. But then when I got into the SEAL stuff, I actually learned a lot more than I even thought. I had no clue, basically, of some of the stuff he was doing, and the chapter where he dies. That was it was pretty simple. Probably could have done more details, but that was a hard chapter for me. And
I don't think you needed more details.
Yeah.
In talking with Mike, every time I've heard him describe it, he describes it as an act that he doesn't have the words to describe.
Yeah.
The heroism and the lack of hesitation.
I remember him telling me that. He told me that he goes, Mike literally focused. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he said the door was right there for him, and he chose not to take it. And I still remember him telling me that. But that's all I really knew about it. I didn't know who else was up there other than Doug. I didn't know the circumstance, really.
Yeah.
And you also start thinking of these guys. They're in this city where, they are not welcome with a lot of these people, and you've got these guys telling through the microphones where they're at. You're surrounded, and it's a tough way to be, and even their living situation was rough. And these guys are just doing what they're supposed to do. They don't feel sorry for themselves. They do their job, and Americans sit here and talk about what the tough times they have. I read Michael's emails after he had passed, and I was surprised. So many of his friends that weren't in the service were literally crying to him about how tough their life was because their girlfriend left them, or they're having a tough time in their classes. And Michael would send back, total support. Oh, I know this is tough, but just stay with it. And it's like, never did they ask how he was doing. They just cried on his shoulder.
Yeah.
They don't understand what you guys go through.
Well, there's two ways to take that from the person, listening to somebody complaining. I ordered an iced mocha, and this is hot.
I wanted a hot drink.
I apologize. Hopefully you
never will I forget.
Yes, hopefully you haven't developed hypothermia since we've been talking. But I ordered 3 pumps of hazelnut in my mocha, and I got there's two ways from somebody, like Michael, who can take that information. You can the initial response that I think a lot of people have would be to jump down that person's throat, like, hey, why don't you shut the fuck up?
Yeah.
Because here's what I'm dealing with. And I don't know which one is right, or I don't want to put a value on either. But the other one is that you can be really grateful that they live a life that is so comfortable that they think that is catastrophic. Because the reality is, if you've never actually put your toes on the line and been willing to sacrifice everything that you have so somebody can make that complaint, you'll never understand it. With that, though, you'll never be able to explain it to somebody who hasn't experienced it themselves. So you have that choice. You can respond with anger and frustration, or you can respond with empathy. Let me be very clear. I've done a lot of both. I don't have a perfect track record when it comes to this by any stretch. But what I've learned is that you'll shut people off if you respond with anger, and you have a chance to nudge people in the right direction if you respond with empathy. And that is a lesson that I learned through a lot of mistakes in responding improperly.
Well, maybe that's what he was thinking, because all of his emails were, I've got your back, anything I can do.
That just speaks to the character of your son and how you and your wife raised him. It wasn't something that I understood until much later in my life. You just cannot. I mean, imagine if he had tried to explain over email what he was.
Yeah,
like that's not a medium. It's just like right over the top of your head.
Yeah,
or it would fall short. It will have whatever metaphor that you want to use to describe it. But the fact that he was where he was and doing what he was doing and still there as a shoulder for people to be able to put more weight on. I mean, that's a testament to you and your wife.
Well, I don't know if I did anything. My wife,
say you probably
I
did.
don't know. It's like I've been blessed with 4 kids, and life's like a numbers game, being a gambler. And I would think, okay, I got 4 kids. Which one goes bad on me? It's just odds.
Bad's relative, though. There's going to be a bell curve in the kids, too.
There's going to be one, yeah.
Even with my 3. Trust me, there's a bell curve. And that bell curve really changes depending on the topic.
It does. That's true. It's like they're so different. They're just they're a puzzle, You're just trying to get them where they'll be self-sufficient one day, and get them, protect them, especially with boys, from doing something that may affect their whole life.
That is a true statement,
and
George.
I'm definitely worried about that. Yeah.
I just need to get them to a place where their actions are legally their responsibility and not mine. That should be the goal of any parent.
So
nurturing, what? No. You're 18 now.
You say, like, don't blame me. He's 18. Yeah.
Yeah, he's an adult, clearly on paper.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of 18-year-olds are really adults.
No, I think that's one of the dumbest legal definitions that we put out there. Oh, so yesterday you were 17 and 364
Boom,
days.
you're an adult.
Boom, today.
Yeah.
I mean,
makes no sense.
No, the data is in. I mean, the frontal cortex of the adult male brain, we need our mid-20s to let that sort itself out.
Yeah, and it's so true, but it's like I've got young people work in their 20s, and no, they're not really adults.
Yeah.
They got a long ways to go.
Oh, for sure. It's a arbitrary number with an arbitrary date associated on paper.
Yeah, I think a lot of life experience is really what brings you up to an adult level, not just a number.
I agree. Yeah. When did you guys hear that they were going to build a ship in Mike's honor?
We heard Secretary of Navy when we were there. We're at the Pentagon. And he said,
while you were there for the Medal of Honor?
Yeah.
Wow.
And he says, he said, I would like to name a ship after your son. And we're thinking, okay. It was like, whatever. It wasn't like a for sure thing.
Yeah.
It was just he says, I'd like to put your name in, and it's like, okay. I'm not so sure we would have wanted it if we would have known all the traveling and all the stuff that my wife would be roped into doing. It was 10 years, I think.
Really?
Yeah, it was 2006, they told us, and I don't think that ship was done, probably more than that. Just a couple of years ago, it finally was all settled in San Diego. It was good, and sometimes it was exhausting.
What kind of stuff were they asking your wife to do?
Well, you show up to... even there's some photos in there where you do a weld thing, or a lot of tradition that we were told. The Navy, it just reeks in tradition,
steeped in tradition.
Yeah,
for sure.
And it's like what? When you're a snuffy in the Marine Corps, you don't even know about these types of traditions. You celebrate Marine Corps birthday.
Let me tell you, if you're in the Navy, you don't know about the traditions either.
Yeah, and it's like there's another tradition, and it's like, okay, pack up and go to that. Pack up and go to that. Oh, it's okay. Just take a couple of days off. Civilian life doesn't always work with military life. They forget that we can't just have a ceremony without really making a lot of changes to be able to get there. So it was a long process, and then that ship had a lot of problems
in the design and build.
And the design, yeah. I think they've worked out all the bugs, but also I think they've changed the mission of the ship a couple of times too. But Scott, who was the captain, he did a great job, and I truly thank him for the work he put in. The whole thing on the ship. We asked that the ship kind of have seals represented. So we had, I don't know if they still have it, but every time we visited, they had the ship, the seals that had passed on that ship. So there's a display of seals that have lost their lives over this war. And
I suspect they have not taken that.
Yeah, I don't think they would. Because I go, it should be a ship for the SEALs. They should. Of course, it's the Navy. I know, but if you're going to have Michael there, a SEAL, then the other guys that lost their lives, are they really less? No. So we wanted them on that ship, and they put it up, which is I think it's nice. And I think when the SEALs went and visited the ship, I think they were pretty happy to see that. They have something with Michael, but it's just nice that those SEALs are not forgotten.
Well, I don't think there should, of course, ever be a value placed against is one life worth more than the other, because I don't even think that's an argument that could be had. But there is a difference between the actions that your son took and the actions oftentimes that would have taken the lives of the other SEALs. There is a difference, and I'm glad that they recognize that.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but still these guys lost their lives. They're out there. Yeah. And the pain is the pain for their parents, for their friends. So I just want them to be remembered. They go to that ship, and they're there too. Other than that, I offered to let them take Mike's Corvette and bolt it to the bulkhead.
Elon Musk probably would have shot it into space for you, because I think he did send a convertible into space. So that's not a lost cause just yet. Maybe he'll do round 2 of that, because that would be pretty sweet too. What's not in the book that you would want people to know about your son?
Well, I hope when they read the stories, they will know what a giving person he was. If he had something and his friend didn't have it, he would either share it with his friend, or he literally would give it to his friend. He was just that he was so generous, and he was always cool. Things. You'd see people blowing up over something, and he just would just take it, never lose his cool, and he would adjust to it. He would either fix it, or he would make some adjustment. He wouldn't storm off and lose his temper. He's very good about that, where you would think, most people would be really ticked off and they'd hold a grudge or this, that. He could hold a grudge, but it would be no big deal. It'd be like, I don't trust this guy. He wouldn't run around bad-mouthing anybody. It's just something about him. It was always pretty calm. And it's hard to understand him sometimes, the way he would take bad news. And I know it would hurt sometimes, but he would just, he knows life is tough. And he felt better helping people. He got more pleasure out of helping some of his friends. Like, we lived in a high-end area at one time, and then I just went belly up. I had IRS, I had everything. So we moved down, and our neighbors are doctors and lawyers. So I moved down to this other part down in Garden Grove, and it wasn't a good area. And it was good for my kids, because they saw the other part of the world, where they were around kids who didn't have a lot. and it was just a whole mix of different nationalities in Garden Grove, and it's a city that we really like. There are lessons to be learned there, and my kids definitely learned a lot of lessons. It's just, and Michael just thrived there. Some of his friends were just so poor, and one of them is a doctor today. So it's another thing that, just because you're here doesn't mean you can't be someplace else with enough work and determination. I remember he was in the classes for the kids that were smarter than the others, right? And I would say, Michael, how do you like your class? What's going on? And like I said, the area was so mixed. I remember his comment was, nope, they don't speak English. And I said, well, that's okay, Mike. Eventually you'll make more friends and you'll be able to communicate with the kids you're in class with. He goes, oh, I'm talking about the teacher. So, that's the kind of neighborhood we were in, But my kids learned that they can live any place. They can have things or they can have things. They know how to live in this world, and it was a great experience. When we moved in, we didn't even have a bathroom. I made a deal with the guy because I was totally belly up, and I says, look, let me rent this place and I'll get it livable. Just let me get going. I put the bathroom in, we got things working, and we stayed there until we got back on our feet. So it worked out great, and they had a real life experience where they were around so many different nationalities, so many different languages, and my kids thrived there. So
I think kids thrive in adversity.
Yeah, I think
one of the worst things you could do as a parent is just kind of pad the world around them.
Yeah, it's like when I remember my daughter said, hey, Dad, I was with so-and-so. I don't remember her name, but her parents were lawyers. And they just say that they want their daughter to be happy. And she's looking at me, how come you never say that? Well, as long as you live with me, you're never going to be happy. But I started thinking that is a tragic thing.
It is.
Because the kids, if they're always trying to be happy, when real life hits them, they're not going to know what to do. And I said, I would prefer that you guys grow up to be good. I go, it's a simple word, but it's very difficult to be, because good means you're going to do some things that, because you have to do the right thing, it's going to hurt you. So if you understand that, you'll be better off, but you will have to make sacrifices sometimes to do the right thing. Not everything is to make you happy. And she didn't like that, but she's
shocker.
She's done fine. Yeah.
What do you want for yourself, for the life that you have left?
I'm good. Man, I don't know if I get this out. I lost my wife in July, and I don't think there's anything really that I want. Man, I told you something's going to hit me in this conversation.
How could it not?
Yeah. So,
what do you look forward to the most? Spending time with your grandkids?
Yeah, I mean, I drove out here just to spend time with them. This was an add-on. It might not have been the best add-on trip.
My apologies.
Yeah, I don't have a lot that I'm looking for. I live super small. I got a little condo down at the beach, and it's a huge change in my life, and still hurts. I think the only good thing I've done really is fulfilling my promise to my wife that she would die, because we had downgraded and we were going to start traveling. So we have a house in Oregon, and so we thought between the beach and Oregon, and then just traveling was what we were going to do. We would be good, and then she got sick for about a year, and then the last 6 months was she had pancreatic cancer, and all she cared about was that she wanted to die in the house, and I would be with her. And so that's why I went on with a part-time job, and I just took care of her, and she wanted to sleep in our bed, so I would, after a while she couldn't walk anymore, and I couldn't keep her in the wheelchair, she'd just slide out of it, so I'd be carrying her to the bed in the evening, and then I'd carry her and put her in the hospital bed in the living room where she could, watch some TV or something. But you just watch your wife get sicker and sicker. It's hard. And and then eventually she couldn't talk anymore, and we just would, hold each other's hands and kind of communicate with our eyes, and just keeping, cleaning her and carrying her to the restroom. And if anybody ever does that, decides to do that, it is difficult.
Yeah,
it is so difficult. And then the day comes, and thank God I was there. And I was with her that morning and just sat with her, and she didn't sound right, wasn't breathing right, and then just face to face, and eventually her eyes closed and she let go of my hand. So as far as my future, I don't care too much anymore. I think I just sit around. That's why I like to travel now, just get in the car. But I just bounce around in the house. Anyway, I don't have a lot of big plans.
Yeah.
I have a charity that I got involved with. I'm trying to help teenagers, learn trades, things like that. But I've just been out of it for the last year, and hopefully I'll get back to it. But it's for anybody that's married. You have no idea. I was married South for over 50 years, 49 years married. And it is hard, and you will not realize how much you love your wife or your husband until that day comes. So there's just a word for anybody listening to this story. Take care of your spouse, because the day will come. And I really thought I would be the first one to go, since I haven't seen a doctor for 50 years. We were just shocked that she had cancer. And it was a lot of tears, and I kept telling her she'll be fine, and she kept telling me no. All the way up until the last month is when I finally realized. Intravenous feedings every night. It was just a lot of hard work, and I really wish I could have done more. And
George, I don't think there's anything else you could have done more. I hope that you can even begin to fathom how much what you did meant to her. I don't know if a lot of people will find love to that degree. I think a lot of people would probably say that love at that level isn't even possible anymore, but I can only imagine the things that you were there for and able to do, and what that meant to your wife.
Yeah, well, she did. She thanked me many times that I was there for her. So your question, what am I going to do? Probably not much. I don't have anything on the list. The problem is I think about my wife, then I think it's like I can't. Once I think about Michael, I'll think about Sal. Think about Sal, I think about Michael. So I'm pretty pathetic.
That is not the word that I would choose. You have been dealt a hand that I think would crumble most people.
Yeah. I'm sure I'll get through this, but there's a loneliness. It was like I was thinking on this trip how much we used to enjoy just going to crazy places. And I enjoyed the trip. I like just, what's around the bend type of a thing and talking to people, coffee shop or just small talk. But it dawned on me, there's no more joy because I don't have anybody to share it with. So there's just no joy. And it just hits you. But
well, I would hope that there would be a time limit associated with there not being joy. I do think that it is possible that you could find a way to experience joy, but you'll never get those things back, obviously, that you've lost.
Yeah, I mean, joy comes with sharing it. So I don't know. I just kind of figure at my age, this is probably going to be it. I'll get back involved in maybe some charity work. I mean, that's another reason. If money is to be made in the book, that's where it's going to go. That'll keep me busy. And also, maybe do some good because I have everything. I mean, my places are paid for. I don't have any real problems. I drive an old 25-year-old Jeep. That's how, I just don't live, do anything special. I just live a pretty simple life, and I'm good with that as long as I can, I got to eat well and really do what I please. I'm pretty happy. It's just I got to get over this and, get back to doing some of the stuff I was doing in the past. It'll take a while. I'll get through it. It's harder because with Michael, I had Sal.
Yeah.
And now it's in fact she was buried with Michael. So it was kind of another thing she wanted, and so she's right there at Rosecrans with him.
I think that's a special thing for both of them.
Yeah. That was one of her main things was I want to be buried with Michael, and they okayed it, and it was nice, real simple, but it was very nice.
Where do your travels take you next? Other than to the car dealership to get a four-wheel drive vehicle, obviously. We've discussed this. I will provide you directions in either direction that you'd like to go. Just tell me the model of car you would like.
Well, I'll probably that's her car. So I drove it because I thought I'd save on gas, which I would have because that Jeep's a monster. But I'll probably just put it back in the garage and just drive my old Jeep. And
where will you go from here, though? From Kalispell, what do you have planned?
I'm going to go down to. I think I told you I was in Oregon at the time, so
yep.
I was looking, just checking out the house, making sure it was still standing. I think I'm going to go down to maybe Vegas. I've got some tickets I want to cash. Thank you, Kansas City. So it was a good day. It was a good day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I'll cash those, and I think I'll just go home and thaw out a little bit, and just kind of figure out what I want to do from day to day. My sister visits me. I only allow her to see me twice a month now, because when we bought the place, Sal and I were going to remodel it, but since she got sick, we didn't. So she comes in couple times a month just to remind me. It's like, she says it's like walking into a 1960s condo, because it's
maybe you like the 60s.
It's pretty bad. I tell her it's sort of clean, so I don't know if I'll ever do anything about it. Maybe that will be my next project. I don't know, but right now it was good just hitting the road and staying busy, and obviously, I still haven't gotten over my wife, but anyway, no big plans.
I watched cancer take my mom, and what you've described, the open road afterwards, is the journey that my dad went down as well. And I think if he was sitting here, he would or if I had asked him the same questions, he would have answered it in the ways that you did. And the lens that he was viewing it through was the day that you're living through right now, and the proximity to the things that are weighing on you right now. And I don't know anything. I can't tell the future. But I was able to watch my dad find his way. So I know that it's possible. He didn't have to bear the burden of losing a son overseas in addition to losing his wife. But I have seen true happiness in my dad since then.
Yeah.
So I think it is possible. And that's as far as I'd be willing to say, because again, I don't know shit.
Yeah.
But I've seen it happen for other people.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll get over this. I'm not exactly a cupcake. I know life is hard.
Nobody's a cupcake.
Yeah. But it's it's just life. I just wish it would have been me first, and then my wife could feel bad. She'd probably get over it a lot quicker. But your dad, then, I'm sure he felt the same way. He's watching someone he loves.
High school sweetheart.
Yeah. You're watching them just fall apart.
Yeah.
And it's so sad. And these memories just constantly when, I knew my wife when she was 18, and it's, you just remember those days, and you're glad you do remember them. I mean, They're sad now, but you don't want to lose those. I don't mind crying, not necessarily with you, but I don't want to lose those memories. So it's just something that I feel sorry for your dad, but I'm glad he's on the right road. And it's just something that anybody who has a spouse is going to have to deal with, and it really hurts.
Yeah. I mean, obviously everybody's situation is different. The difference in his situation right now is time. And I think that's probably the only thing that will round the edges on it, if it ever will. I mean, obviously there's no guarantee, but it can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got some senior citizen neighbors, and so they're single. And now I understand loneliness because of what's happened to me. And I realize how lonely they are too. Anyway, after my wife passed, these two of these ladies were dropping off casseroles.
There's a couple different ways you could take that.
Yeah. And I remember thinking, what is this? I just leave me alone. And you realize they're just, lonely.
Yeah.
And it's not just that they're feeling sorry for what happened to me, but they're lonely. And my sister says, hey, what's the deal on the neighbors? And because she saw the casseroles. And I just clean out the container, say, thank you very much. And she goes, so what's going on? I says, well, I think they found out that I have all my teeth. And so
Jesus.
So they're looking. I'm in the hunt, so I don't know. But I definitely really understand people that are by themselves who have had a spouse, and there's that loneliness, and it's just something we'll have to deal with. I think I'll just find a buddy or a project. I have plenty of
French bulldog.
Yeah, I got plenty of crazy people at the casino.
Oh, you're gonna have your fill of crazy fucks at the casino.
Yeah, they're crazy, and sometimes I get a big kick out of them, especially when I catch them stealing or cheating in a game. I just can't help but smile and want to go down and chat with them.
Well, George, I will let you close it out. We've been at it for almost 3 hours.
Oh God, I thought this was going to be.
What did you think it was going to be?
I don't know, in and out.
I don't think it's possible, not given the ground that we covered. I mean, first off, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to come up and talking about who your son was. I think the world is a better place for knowing about him and what he did in his life.
Well, I hope people read the book because there's something in there for everyone. But just to understand what you can do when you face these adversities, and it's really your own determination that's going to make you whoever you want to be. And he's an example, and I just hope they'll give it a read. They can kind of see what happens to so many of us when we're young, and they get a taste of what SEALs go through. I think they'll enjoy the book, and they'll be better for reading it.
I think so too. And
Yeah.
perhaps that's the best ending ever right there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.